2, 1.
Good morning and happy Monday. I want to call the HART Board Meeting to order. Will everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, you should have copies of the July 16, 2018 board meeting. I hope you had a chance to review those. If so, we have a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Merman, second by McLean. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, let me know by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, likewise. Motion is adopted. Do we have any input from the public at this particular point in time? Okay, all right. Move to discussion items. Status of HART Interim Chief Executive Director. Counselor, Mr. Smith, recognized.
Yes, good morning. As part of what I'm going to say is also to make sure the public is caught up to speed on what's happening. There's been several communications with the board, which of course were not public until now. They're public record, but no one's asked for them. So I'll give you a little bit more background and also summarize the situation. As you know, we had a miscount on the vote on the last meeting. We thought there was a 6-5 vote in favor of a national search. It was 6-6. It's a tie vote. We have no special rules, and as a consequence, we recur to Robert's Rules of Order, and on a tie vote, the motion fails. So we have a series of actions that were taken that are dubious. Fortunately, or unfortunately, as it may be, circumstances have kind of overtaken the situation, which I will describe to you briefly, and then we'll need to go back and talk about what action the board needs to take. Specifically, in addition to my email, you received an email which included a letter from the CEO. And that letter, you may or may not have a chance to read it entirely, but there's a couple of important factors in there. The current contract has an expiration date of November 30, 2018. This board, on the January 16th board meeting, voted to extend that, but voted to extend that on the basis of a previously approved motion that was really not approved. So Jeff, in his letter, indicates that it would probably be appropriate for this board to reconsider exactly whether that extension is applicable or not. We'll come back to that later. One of the things that's most important in the letter, though, is that Mr. Seward specifically excluded himself from candidacy for the CEO position. He also recommends that you do a national search, and that a national search is advisable for the reasons he outlines in his letter, which I think was part of the debate that this board had on the 16th. He indicated that he will continue to work as CEO as long as you need him. He looks forward to returning and serving the subsequent CEO that is hired as the CFO, which is what his intent was at the outset. So just to make sure the record reflects that Mr. Seward's letter is part of the record. I also received an email from Ms. Lee that I circulated to you. It deals with a discussion with Mr. Greg Moser, who is with Krauthammer and Associates, the group that we hired to do a search initially and abortedly hired again. And he indicated that it's not particularly wise to limit your search to a statewide search. Because if you're going to do a statewide search, it's going to get out nationally anyway. There's internet, there's advertising. HART is a transit entity that has a national reputation, and you're going to have applicants that are outside the state, and there's no differential in price to speak of. It's pretty much the same process. So he echoes Mr. Seward's comment that to the extent you're going to do a CEO search, which seems obvious at this point you will, it should be a national search. I was unfortunately out of communication last week, but it's my understanding that the Hillsborough County Board of County Commissioners has also taken action to provide funding to HART, and part of that funding requirement was with an expressed purpose that HART would go through a national search for a new CEO. I don't know the exact terms of that, but it's probably irrelevant because I think that's exactly what we're going to do in any event. But that obviously is another issue of consequence here. Okay, so now the question is, what do we need to do? One of the motions that was approved unanimously. You could probably argue that that's still a valid motion as a consequence of that. However, I think that it would be prudent for us as a board to sort of clean the slate and start anew. And I think the first action, if you look back at the minutes, which you just approved, you'll notice that the first motion was by Director Merman, to initiate an executive search for a HART Chief Executive Officer position immediately, seconded by Ms. Shanahan. I think subsequently there was a discussion that that search should be a national search. What I would suggest we do is take the seriatim if we could. I would suggest that the board, someone make a motion to conduct a search for a new CEO, make it a national search.
Should we not accept the interim executive director's letter first and foremost? Should we accept that and then the search? Okay.
It seems to me that would be the first action to take, and in seriatim we take them one at a time. The next motion would be, I think the second motion was a time frame. I'm not sure whether or not this board wants to take the set of time frame or not. That's obviously a policy choice. I would like to see this board have a new motion, however, to move forward with the national CEO search. Okay, if you want to set a time frame, you obviously could set one. And then the other issue deals with establishing an ad hoc committee. I think that was the discussion.
Right.
And then the last motion of consequence was the extension of Mr. Seward's existing employment agreement.
So my question is, do we have to have the motion to have a nationwide search first, then accept his letter, and then talk about a possible addendum to his amendment to his contract? I'm trying to get a clear understanding of what you think, what's your recommendation as far as the motion goes again, first?
I don't think you have to accept the letter, but there's nothing wrong with doing that, and that certainly makes the situation clear. So if you want to have a motion to accept the letter as is, so that's a predicate fact on what you do next.
I think it's important that we do that. Is there a motion to accept?
I'll make the motion to accept the
Motion by
letter.
Mr. McLean, second by Commissioner Merman to accept Mr. Seward's letter. Is there further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor let me know by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise. Motion is adopted.
And
Okay.
Paul.
I would believe the next motion would be a motion to initiate a national search for a full-time CEO.
Commissioner Merman, you recognize.
Thank you, and I'll make the motion to initiate the nationwide search for the new CEO for HART.
Second.
There's a second by Mr. McLean. In that motion, Commissioner Merman, are you putting a timeline on it, or are you just leaving it wide open?
I think that we should have the Krauthammer people come back to us and tell us the timeline. I understand a lot of work's already been done in preparation for this already, that we're kind of ready to go. But I think that it would be good for the Krauthammer people to come back to us at our next meeting and kind of lay out for us the exact schedule.
Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor let me know by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise. Motion is adopted.
The board also voted to establish an ad hoc committee in order to assist in the process. Since that was a subsequent decision made after the initial decision that was ultimately not passed, it'd probably be appropriate to have another motion to establish an ad hoc committee pursuant to the same parameters set forth on 16th of July.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion by
Second.
Mr. Mechanic, second by Commissioner Merman to establish an ad hoc committee. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor let me know by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise. Motion is adopted.
The last item of business would be, since you've accepted the letter, one of the consequences of that is you've accepted the fact that the current expiration date of the employment agreement for Mr. Seward is November 30th, 2018. If you wish to change that, you should do so by motion. If you want to table that and wait and see what happens, that's also action you can take.
Well, it's going to be quite obvious that we're not going to have a new CEO on board by the end of November. So what's your pleasure, Mr. McLean?
Thank you, Chair. My recommendation is to wait for Krauthammer and Associates to come back with us on the timeline, and then we can set a motion to extend Mr. Seward's contract. And I'll motion that way.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Commissioner McLean, Mr. McLean, second by Commissioner Kemp to wait to hear from the consultant at our September meeting. Is that what it is, September? Yeah, this is August. Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor let me know by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise. Motion is adopted. Mr. Smith, anything else?
I believe they said, I think last time you asked for volunteers to serve on the ad hoc committee. I think you've received some. I'm not sure that would be initiated by the actions on July
I
16th.
do have them. I don't have them. Staff has those. They're going to get them to me today, and I'll make those appointments later today, the first thing tomorrow, and staff will get those names out. I want to have a balanced committee here, weighted one way or the other, and it'd be fair, equitable and give everyone an opportunity to serve on that committee. So I'll look at that later on today. That's it, sir?
That's it for agenda item 2 within my purview. Thank you.
Okay, all right. Federal Transit Administration, FTA.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, board members.
Before you do that, is there anything you want to say toward the action just took? I don't even put you on the spot. You don't say anything.
But he
I just
is.
thought about it, but if you don't want to, just go with the FTA.
I would be happy to make a comment.
Have at it.
As I stated in my letter, I feel very strongly that the last 8 months we have done a lot of good forward momentum. Our staff has, from the resignation of Ms. Egan, we didn't stand still and just hold the status quo. We moved the organization forward. We accomplished many things over the last 8 months, and I wanted to ensure that the staff is recognized for that work. I feel very strongly, and there will be many on this board that disagree with this philosophy, but I truly believe that the last 8 months has been an active an interview. I feel very strongly that if we are going out to a national search, which I do support, my philosophy is that I don't want to compete, one, with someone that will eventually be my boss when I'm a CFO. Two, I think it's disingenuous of me to continue to move the organization forward during that process in which I am a candidate, where the scrutiny of every action we do, everything the staff does, can somehow be looked at as a reflection of only doing it in the pursuit of the job. And I am not comfortable with that. I prefer to do the job and then prepare the organization for a new leader to come in and steadfastly be loyal and work for that leader as a CFO and continue to move the organization forward. And that's why I made the decision that I did.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thanks.
Someone say something? Okay. Okay, sir. FTA.
All right, so the FTA ferry project, as you may recall, in January, I provided you an update on our grant timeline. And I am going to give just a quick overview of that again to show you the importance of this discussion item this morning. In 2013, HART applied for $9 million from the 5307 Discretionary Passenger Ferry Grant Program in support of a Hillsborough County project for a high-speed ferry. In 2014, HART was awarded $4,772,000 as direct recipient for the ferry project, which the funding expires in September of 2019. In 2015, FTA Region 4 staff visited HART for a face-to-face project update. It was made explicitly clear at that time that HART is 100% accountable and responsible for the use or non-use of the funds and the success of the project. No other governmental entity bears that burden. Since 2015, we have had monthly meetings with the FTA. Every month, I've been on the phone with the FTA and county project representatives to talk through where we are or where we aren't, as the case may be. Last summer, HART leadership, the county attorney and county staff, and HNTB, which is the county's consultant, was summoned to Atlanta for a regional administrator face-to-face with Dr. Yvette Taylor. It was made very clear at that meeting that the expectations were that HART would move this project along, and we made some commitments during that meeting with the county in support that we were going to meet the obligations of that grant and have a project ready to move forward. Winter of 2017, FTA requested further updates on the project and the NEPA process. The NEPA process is required to even access those grant dollars. It reminded HART again that we are the accountable body. County promised FTA HART options for moving forward, and it was to be taken up again at the February 21st BOCC meeting. At the 21st BOCC meeting, the extension with HMS Ferries was agreed to and moved forward with. So, as I voiced in January, I had a concern that irrespective of any other governing body or administration's intent, HART leadership and the HART board is going to be held accountable for these funds. Fast forward to July 26th. I received this letter last week from the FTA, specifically calling us out, saying that FTA, within 7 days of this letter, I have asked for a couple days extension, to indicate your plans whether HART is still committed to completing the project as described in the discretionary award application, or if a revised D-scope project proposal will be submitted to the FTA and by when. I had communications with county staff, and they had their owner's rep prepare a document with Mr. Lyons, who is the Director of Public Works, and forwarded it. And I will jump to the very last paragraph. Given the unavoidable time it would take to complete the steps in the last bullet above, which is, and I will read the last bullet, initiation of preliminary design, formal permitting, development of a lease agreement at MacDill Air Force Base, and other necessary steps for development of the project projected for April 2019. So again, given the unavoidable time it would take to complete the steps in the last bullet above, which I just read, along with the final design and bidding for construction of a terminal facility, it does not appear to be possible to initiate construction by the September date required by the grant. So we now have in writing from the county that we will not be able to fulfill the obligations and the timeline of the grant. Now, although the grant expires in September of 2019, it is made very clear that due to processing times, system downtime, and the process that the FTA has to initiate drawdown of that grant, we have to start submitting requirements to hold down money by April of next year. There is no way that this project would ever meet those deadlines. So what I propose is a letter to the FTA clearly stating the outcome of the county's letter, that we are simply not going to be able to meet that date, thereby not being able to fulfill the obligations of the grant.
Any discussion?
If I could, I just have a couple questions. One, so we are not going to be drawing down on these funds because, of course, we're not in the kind of time frame that we need to be. So, you know, we get this fish or cut bait letter from FTA. Is there a possibility that we can work with T-BARTA to have them take over some of this part of the project, meaning that, you know, we step out. T-BARTA, I'm not sure if they've gotten any kind of designation for federal funds to be approved yet. They probably haven't, but I just wanted to ask that first, because I do believe that T-BARTA should be the agency that should be running these kind of things. We, of course, are only looking at the terminal process, and even on MacDill Air Force Base, that's a much different process than what we're used to. Where were we along the lines on the NEPA process to determine what landing site in South Hillsborough would have been appropriate for us to move forward? You know?
I do. It was never completed.
It was never completed, and the reason why it was never completed was because of what? What happened?
I would defer to a county commissioner.
Don't forget me. Commissioner Kemp, I saw you there.
First.
Just want to make sure we're
Thank you,
where we're
Mr.
at.
Chair. As many of you know, I've been very involved in this project all along. I think we've known for a long time that we could never make the timeline for the federal dollars with the way that for federal dollars for this specific part of it, with the way that the project was configured these federal dollars or this grant was looked at for terminal sites. I'm very comfortable at this point with moving forward, and I'm just this is accurate. I mean, we could never, and we've known this for probably a year, that we could never advantage these dollars for the terminal sites. But the county is moving forward. We do have a owner's rep. We are looking. There is a very robust process going on right now to go forward. These funds in the future can be used. We can go back and get federal funds in the future for different parts of this project, specifically the most expensive part of the project, which is acquiring ferries. And that would make sense. So I see this as just a moving forward, and honestly, the where the grant and how the process went, I don't think it's appropriate. We will never be able to use the federal dollars, as I said, and we couldn't use them. So I just I'm comfortable with our board doing however we want to move forward, and just with this letter, but acknowledging that we no longer can use these federal dollars as outlined.
Well, I understand. I know
I just want to
answer your question.
Sure.
And I can't answer the question because I'm not supporting it.
Okay.
Commissioner Merman, can you answer his question?
Which question is that?
What was the question? Where was the?
Yeah, what happened in the process? Why didn't we get it?
Okay.
I mean, because
So,
it's been talked about for a long time. So I'm
Okay.
just curious. Because
So
I know the
there's-
county had a big role in it, so I just want to know
Right.
what happened.
So I go back with this project from the start. That's probably 5-6 years ago.
Right.
And Kathy Castor helped us get these funds. So my only hesitation would be I'd like someone to have a discussion with her. Have you had that?
I have.
Oh, okay.
And I will have, once this letter is signed, I'll have another discussion, but I did have the opportunity
Okay.
to prep her for the fact that this may occur, and that
Okay.
was a few months ago, and I will revisit that and get back with her again.
Okay, so the way the project started was a P3, a public-private partnership, and only one person, HMS, really answered the bid, I guess. It wasn't actually a bid. It
Well,
was
can I interrupt you for a minute, Commissioner? You know that I was on the board with you at the same time as this,
Right.
so I kind of know that part of
Okay.
it. I'm talking about the NEPA process, which was going to include some of what the county was doing and what we were trying to do in order to find a suitable spot.
Right. Well,
and
that
there were
was-
some problems with both spots, and
that was the requirement of this grant,
Mm-hmm.
and that was the strings that were attached to the grant, was to have a NEPA study done, all
Right.
that. So the county, what we have set aside, our BP oil spill dollars, about $23 million. And we are in the process now, we are fast tracking. We've got AECOM owner's rep that is actually putting the project together to bring back to our board, hopefully by the end of September. We are on a deadline, and because I know our county commission wants this settled one way or the other by the end of the year.
And the answer to the question is that there is already a property that you all have designated, and that you're going to do.
That's part of what AECOM
Okay,
is
AECOM's gonna
doing.
do that. Okay.
I went and met with SwiftMud last week on it. They're doing their due diligence and going. There are 3 sites identified, and they are thoroughly scrubbing and vetting each and every site.
Right, and I just wanted, the reason I asked the question that way is because we went through a lot of discussion and a lot of talk about this, and of course, since we're the only federal recipient of these kind of dollars, for us to be involved in the process and then not to have an end result bothers me a little bit, because I think this board, especially, we put a lot of time and effort into making this work, and I think you know this as well as I. You and I have been on together for a long time on this board, and we were very enthusiastic about getting this thing done, and I'm hoping that we can find some solution to this and make sure it works, especially, the McDill because last week we just approved dollars to do downtown Tampa to St. Pete. And that's a fine thing for the weekend and stuff. But the real impetus of a true transit organization is the South County to McDill
Absolutely.
to get people off the road. And we all know that. And that's why I was hoping that we would have better news than this. One other question that I wanted, Jeff. Now, as it stands, we have no obligation to the federal government after we say we're not going to be able to move forward, correct? I just want to make sure there's nothing we owe them, there's nothing that we drew down on, so that we're good.
Yes, well, being good is relative, but yes.
Well, what's the relative good then? So tell me what that is.
Once we inform the FTA that we will not be able to make those guidelines, they will most likely respond in a letter saying that those federal funds are no longer available.
Okay, that's fine. I meant that we didn't expend any dollars that we owe back to the Fed.
We did not.
Okay, good. Thank
And
you.
if I may just add to the comments, I mean, actually, the FTA has changed the way they're giving money out. I mean, this
A lot of things have
particular
changed in
grant
Washington, for
is
sure.
is
Yeah.
kind of goes back so far that
Yeah.
they don't even offer those type of. I don't think they offer those type of grants anymore. I think it's all changed into different other categories.
A lot of different buckets now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
a lot of different buckets.
Yeah. Thank you, Commissioner.
Ms. Shannon,
Appreciate
be
it.
recognized.
I have to say, for the county commissioners that talk about how much money we need to have or how much money we don't have, to half-handedly say turning back whatever it was, $4 million, like that is not a problem, I find embarrassing. I'm sorry.
Oh,
This
I
is a
think it is,
6-year
too.
process. I remember the meeting when Ed Tarantia came. It's his customer, right? He came to the meeting and he's been the advocate for this, and this has not been managed. I don't know who was supposed to be the manager. I don't know if it's HMS or if it's the county, but I think this is embarrassing. And I frankly think agencies that turn back money, I know this happens at the state level, I'm sure it happens at the federal level. You turn back money you don't use, you're blackballed. So you can sit here and whitewash this in whatever way you guys want in terms of, we need money, we don't have money. We had $4 million. We had 6 years to go through this process. And someone sits there and says, we didn't have to do a NEPA process. We knew that from day one. We knew that the day that they came here, and you guys used HART to basically get this money. And now we're the ones that are going to get blackballed when we're trying to put all this pressure on the management team to go get federal money, and we're going to send money back. I don't know. I just think I think it's disappointing. I think it's embarrassing, and I frankly think somebody should be held accountable in some way, shape, or form. That we had 6 years to go through a process, and we end up with a pretty stark letter saying money's gone. And I think HART was used in the process as a shield to get something done, and we're the ones that are going to be tarnished in terms of a brand. That's my comment.
Thank you, Commissioner Ms. Shanahan. Let me say this before I get to anyone else. I saw hands. One of the things I've always asked, I continue to ask, I can't get an answer. You talk about all the land sites, docking sites in Hillsborough, South County. What has the Department of Defense said? And no one can answer that question. What is it? You just can't drive up to the McDill Air Force Base in a boat and say, hey, we're going to start docking people here. I asked a question to Mr. Ranchek, our county commissioners, all staff. What has the Department of Defense said? Have they approved, disapproved, even look at it? I can't get an answer. Mr.
7 years later.
Mr. Chairman. Hold on, I got Mr. Mendez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to comment, given that I was here for some of the history on this, longer than some on the board. I just wanted to speak from a HART perspective, historically, what a great partner HART was as this process was moving forward. I remember even going back to Philip Hale being CEO. I asked him, I said, what are we doing to support? Because I love the idea that this supported our military. I love that idea. So in concept, I love that. And I remember we were even analyzing and looking at, how we would support a landing spot in South County to support the military. So, and I remember how, as CFO, how Jeff was very vocal on reminding us of our obligation. And so I'm going to point to a comment that Councilman Suarez made. I think, so if sounds like we're going to be cut loose from this obligation. I think if it circles back around, I think the suggestion of looking at TBARTA, as the agency of purview to take on something like this is a pretty good idea to entertain. Thank you.
Ms. Menendez, I'm sorry, Ms. Williams, recognized.
Thank you. I just want to echo Shanahan's sentiments because when I listened to this, and of course I may not be involved at the time, but the funds were solicited and awarded. And so the question of, I assume that we're turning the money back based on what I heard moments ago, but the question of accountability and how we're going to manage this in the future is something that we need as a key takeaway. When you spend dollars and set plans, you have to have a plan. And it's surprising to me to see that we were advised that we were not going to meet the commitment versus we be more proactive and talk about the things we're doing and then take the steps and what we could do versus what we couldn't do. So I just want to put that on the record that as we go forward, we have to make sure we have a good plan of record and make sure we're very purposeful about dollars that we are awarded specifically after we ask for them.
Mr. McCann, you recognize.
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted
Put your mic down. Put your mic.
I just wanted to state for the record that I represent HMS Ferries not in connection with this particular project, but in connection with the weekend service. And I just wanted, in the interest of full disclosure, to mention that on the record. I don't think we're voting on anything, but if we are, I would abstain, I would assume, based on advice of counsel.
Okay. Commissioner Kemp, you recognize.
Thank you. I'd just like to let everyone know that this project is still moving really full steam ahead in terms of the county. So it's, and there would never be, the county is putting the money forward, the county is doing the study, the county is continuing to work on this. So the fact of these dollars is a whole different thing. These dollars were acquired very, very early on, and they were acquired because really Congresswoman Castor, who I've talked to about this, had a relationship and was able to look at these. We've had a ferry plan in for Hillsborough County for decades now on the books. But I very much appreciate that Mr. Taranchik and HMS Ferries has worked so hard to bring this. I do fully believe still that it will be there. And in fact, with more due haste than we would have, these dollars would have encumbered us and taken way more time on NEPA and other issues that had not been put forward as they could have been in the past and then turned into being a problem. As to the military, Commissioner Miller, I've been down to the base several times. I've talked to top people there. I've been out in the commissary and met all kinds of people. I can tell you that the enthusiasm at the base for this project is incredibly great. In fact, I was recently visited by our Tampa Greater Chamber of Commerce, and they came to me and they said, we went to McDill and said, what can we do for you to help you? And McDill said, we want this ferry. This ferry is extremely important for taking cars off our road, for using our bus system in a more efficient, better way. It's really been a burden. This will be a great transit option. It's fully moving ahead. And by the way, it's still a 3P project, and it's always been a 3P project. It's the only thing we have in transit where we have a private company that's willing to take the risk of loss and the benefit of profit and is moving forward in doing that. We don't have anybody doing that, like at our streetcar, at our bus system, anything else. And we have this. And HMS is one of the most, they came forward and were willing to do this. Every place else in the nation, they are paid as an operator by the jurisdiction. We wouldn't do that here. So they agreed to do this, that they would do this and move forward as a 3P where they would take the risk of loss. It's pretty amazing. HMS does the ferries in New York. They do the ferries in Niagara Falls. They do the ferries in Seattle. This is one of the most standout companies in the nation, and they've looked at this project. So we need to move this project forward. It's moving forward. The county still has the money on the table. We can probably do this for less money than the federal funds and the kind of timelines that the federal funds would have held us to. We do have opportunities in the future, like the other ferry companies or like the other ferry projects around the nation, to use our federal funds once we get this in place. So it is a very worthy, wonderful, and a project that is not going to be. It's amazing that we can have. This would be the only 3P transit project we'd have in this area, unless and until Brightline or something else comes.
Any further discussion? I lost track of where we are with the recommendation. What's the recommendation?
And there is no
There's
recommendation.
no recommendation.
We said no.
Yeah, I do.
You need some action on this.
Yes.
Oh, you need some action.
Yes, it does. What's your pleasure?
Chair, based on the conversation and everything that Mr. Seward said, I think that the direction should be that to send a letter back to FTA that we are not going to continue in this process, that we are no longer going to be a recipient of those dollars based on what we've discussed today. And I assume that's what you were asking for. Either we're going to try and go forward or not go forward. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Is that your motion?
Yes, sir.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Councilman Sawyer, second by Ms. Shanahan.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, in response to Mr. Mechanic's question, I do not believe he has a voting conflict under Chapter 112. You may vote on this motion.
Okay, very good.
I'm sorry.
You can vote.
You do not. You may vote.
Yeah.
Is there any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, let me know by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, likewise. Motion is adopted. Presentations, Transit Asset Management Plan Overview.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This morning, we are going, can somebody post a PowerPoint? Thank you. Somebody click to the next slide, please. Next. All right, thank you. With MAP 21, the FTA developed a rule that all transit agencies receiving federal funds, which is every transit agency, establish a transit asset management plan, or TAM. And it's not optional. It is now a full-fledged requirement for every transit agency to do this. And although we obviously keep records of our assets, they are typically by transit agencies not as detail-oriented with a focus of state of good repair as the new rule sets forth. So, HART contracted with Gannett Fleming to come in and do an evaluation and an overview of what it would take to establish our transit asset management plan and a subsequent program. In the coming months, we will be coming to you with a transit asset management policy. It'll be at the board level, just as we did with our environmental sustainability management system policy. However, today, we're going to go over the details and the findings of this review. Now, why this is a very important discussion today is that directly following this discussion, I'll be talking about the budget. And it's also a very good discussion to have, knowing that we could be on the cusp of a sales tax referendum with additional revenues coming to HART. And the understanding of exactly what our current state of good repair backlog is. I know during the discussions back with Go Hillsborough, we talked extensively about backlogs, not only at HART, but with the county, with road repairs, bridge repairs. Transit is no different. We have a backlog of state of good repair with our rolling fleet, with our equipment. And this quantifies that for us so we can make a comprehensive 5, 10, 15-year plan to address these issues right now. So with that, I'll turn it over with the Gannett Fleming project manager, who will walk through the findings of the study.
Before we do that, Mr. McLean, you recognize.
Mr. Sewell, could you just go through and, just for clarification, what do you mean when you refer to assets?
Oh, actually, that'll be covered in this as well,
Okay.
of which ones are covered and which ones are not.
All right. Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, directors of the board. We'd like to present what we've been working on with HART over the last probably 10 months, starting with a brief overview of what actually transit asset management is. And I'd like to read the definition that FTA provides for that. It's a kind of a comprehensive sentence, so that's why I'm reading it to you. Transit asset management means the strategic and systematic practice of procuring, operating, inspecting, maintaining, rehabilitating, and replacing transit capital assets to manage their performance, risk, cost over their life cycles for the purpose of providing safe, cost-effective, and reliable public transportation. So if we talk about assets, it's really all the capital assets that an agency owns and is operating. So it's from vehicles, it's from buildings, it's IT systems, it's any kind of equipment in the workshops. So everything that you put into your fixed accounting, that you depreciate over time, those are the fixed assets we're talking about. Transit asset management leads through a business process. It starts with overall a policy statement, which the CEO just pointed out will be coming up in one of the next board meetings. But then it goes through really the life cycle process of each individual asset. You procure it, you operate it, you maintain it, you may have to overhaul it, and then at the end of its lifetime, you are going to replace it or dispose it. All of this needs to be put for an agency into one big plan, and that was the requirement of the FTA for each agency to do, and that's the Transit Asset Management Plan. In detail, and I don't want to run through all of the 9 requirements that FTA put into their final rule, but to give you a quick overview, every agency needs to have an inventory of their assets, need to know what they have. They need to understand in which condition they are. Are they in good condition? Are they in poor condition? Are they overaged? They need to have a decision support process or tool to understand when do we need to replace an asset? What is across all assets, the decision process to prioritize certain assets to be replaced, especially when you have constrained funding? You have some kind of process to prioritize investments. Which are the most important investments you need to do to replace assets? Which are ones you put to a lower priority? We talked about the policy. Every agency needs to have a transit asset management policy stating why is asset management important to us, what are the goals that we're trying to achieve with the asset management. They are requiring to see an implementation strategy, which means they would like to see how every agency wants to implement not only transit asset management, but also meeting the requirements of the FTA, not just for this plan, but for all ongoing activities and ongoing plans in the future. Finally, they want HART and every agency to put some resources against it. Some personnel resources, maybe some budget, to have the resources, the tools to implement all the actions. And finally, they would like to see how every agency actually implements these actions and how they monitor the process and the progress they are doing with implementing these. There are certain federally required deadlines that agencies need to meet. The most important one that we're looking at is October 1st, 2018, when the first report needs to be submitted. Then at least every 4 years this needs to be reported, but also every agency needs to report on an annual basis on progress they're making. What are the 4 key questions and 4 areas that we are addressing with this transit asset management plan? First of all, what is the baseline? Looking at all the assets that HART has, about 3,500 that we looked at, how many of those are currently today in a state of good repair and how many are not? So that gives us kind of a snapshot where we stand today. The second is, let's take a 10-year outlook. Every year, some assets will exceed their useful life, so they need to be replaced. To replace them, there's money needed. So this 10-year forecast will show how much money would be needed to replace all the assets that are coming up for replacement in that particular year. Number 3 is about the available funding for state of good repair. In step 2 and 3, we've learned what is the need, how much money do you need in the future. Now we're going to put the funding against it and see if funding and requirements, the need, match, or if funding is not as much, which means you will have a funding gap. And we'll take a look at those numbers. Ultimately, under 4, since we will show that the state of good repair funding will not be required, will not meet your needs, what would be the funding level that would be required to meet all the state of good repair needs in the future? And we've plotted that over a 10-year plan. So the first one, looking at the baseline, starting with what is the asset base that we looked at here at HART. We looked, as I said, at about 3,500 items, worth about $250 million. These are the replacement values of the assets today in 2018. We've collected 4 major groups of assets to make it a little bit better to understand. A big group is blue here, rolling stock. So all the revenue vehicles, buses, cutaways are the most important, and the streetcars. The yellow bar is all equipment, IT, workshop equipment. The green bars are all the facilities, so all the 21st Avenue, for example, all transfer centers, all bus stops. And a small little piece are the streetcar infrastructure, as long as they are on HART property in the EBOR facility. You see that the green facility is a little bit shaded. We found, which is pretty common across agencies, that the facility assets are not kept in a really line item by line item. So to make sure we capture somewhat the overall value of those, we had to go through a rough estimate. So that's the shaded $112 million. However, the assets that we really looked at and we know that need to be replaced over the next 10 years, those are here on the right side, the $23 million for the facility assets. So in total, the asset base we looked at were $163 million. So all the charts we're going to see in the following slides will be based on those $163 million. Just important note, one of your most important expansion projects, the heavy maintenance building, the new one, that replacement is not included in the following numbers. So it's really the current asset base, not including that major new project. So looking at overall the $163 million, you see at the top right, 3/4 of these assets in terms of dollars, in terms of the value, are in a state of good repair. 1/4 currently is not. That's the snapshot for 2018. When you break it down into the assets, infrastructure, streetcar, track, catenary, on the EBOR facility, actually downstairs, is in pretty good shape. About only 40% are not in state of good repair. The facilities, about 28% are not in a state of good repair. Equipment is about 50-50. And rolling stock, currently 16% are not in state of good repair. So if you may want to know, where does that stand in terms of the overall picture in the agencies? Probably pretty much in the middle. Some agencies can be up to 90% in a state of good repair, and it can go down to the 50s and 60%. So the 3/4 is actually pretty much in the middle of that bandwidth. So when we quantify this in terms of money, the 1/4 of assets that are not in state of good repair today are about $43 million. That is the state of good repair investment backlog today. Looking now in the second area, the 10 years ahead. Every year, as I said, some assets are up for replacement. From the very different asset groups, you will see a very irregular profile. Every year, different assets are coming up. So for HART, in the first 2 years, 2019 and 20, the need to replace assets with about $2 million is relatively low. You see big jumps in 2021 and 22. That's when huge amounts of the revenue vehicles, mainly the bus fleet, are up for replacement. Maybe to point out 2021, about 12 years ago, you bought a huge amount of buses because you got the federal dollars for that. Now, after 12 years, these buses are up for replacement again, and you will have this huge demand to replace those buses now in 2022. So if you go through those slides, those charts, you can see between 2 million, but also up to 3 million in a year. That's the bandwidth of need of assets that need to be replaced. If we combine now the investment backlog, so all the assets that today are not in a state of good repair, those are the $43 million, with the 10-year need looking forward, that altogether is a need of $190 million. So if you have that money, you can replace all the assets that are currently in a state of good repair backlog, plus address all the needs for the next 10 years. So this is about 17 million per year. It's a rough average. You've seen the profile, so it is fluctuating. But on average, just to give a benchmark, it's around 17 million. If we now want to compare this with the available funding, obviously it's somewhat of a crystal ball. Nobody can say what the funding situation will be in 6, 8, or 10 years. But based on the current funding levels and estimating that into the future, this is kind of the profile that we expect to see in terms of funding. So right now, around 8 million per year, and then pretty much constant between 8 and then growing up to 8.5 million. That would be the funding that can be addressing state of good repair. We have built in an inflation, so that's why you see those bars going up. So we're trying to account for any devaluation in the future. Now, what does that mean if we take your situation, we have a backlog, and we have annual need, and we spend the funding every year? We will have a backlog. We're starting with 43 million, and because the annual funding is not sufficient to address backlog and the annual need, obviously there's always some assets being left on the table. So the backlog grows over time. As you remember, in 19 and 20, the need with $2 million was pretty small. So actually, the funding helps reducing some of the backlog. That's why you see on those red charts that the backlog is actually going down. But with 2021 and 22, especially with this big jump in rolling stock need, that backlog is going up. At the end of the 10-year period, we estimate that the investment backlog for HART will be around $100 million. What does that mean in terms of state of good repair? So we're starting out with 3/4 of the assets in terms of dollar values are in state of good repair. If you're accumulating a backlog, that means more assets are not in a state of good repair. So at the end of the 10 years, only about half of the assets would be in a state of good repair. And that's what happens when funding and need don't match. So you have a funding gap. If we look at these backlogs again, the red line is now applying the $8.5 million of funding on average against the backlog and need. So the backlog goes up to $103 million. If we ask the question, how much funding would HART require just to maintain the backlog at the current level? So if we take the 43 million, we obviously inflated over the 10 years, then we would require about $13 million funding on average per year. Again, keep in mind this is fluctuating every year, but on average 13 million would be required. This still means you would have the same amount of backlog that you have today. So the question is now, if you want to get rid of your backlog and you want to address the state of good repair need every year, how much funding would be required then? So this scenario now shows that about 17 million per year would be needed if you want to have the goal to eliminate the backlog at the end of the 10th year and still address every year's upcoming replacement needs. This was kind of a summary of the numbers part. Obviously, a lot of the 9 requirements you saw earlier are going to be addressed in the report. So those are one of the key major steps that we are working with HART against the October 1 deadline. But also, this was not an exercise to just check the box and be compliant with FTA. It's really also to put an asset management process in action here at HART. So HART is working on an organizational ownership. Who will own this at HART? Who will be the resources? Who will be the people to work on it? They will be putting an action plan together to implement the 10 plan updates for the future, but also to implement good management business practices. How do you better maintain your assets? What can you do to extend the life? All those are being put into the report. HART is working on this to improve the ongoing practices. And all of this needs to be combined with the overall capital planning process so that the assets and the forecast of everything that's coming up for replacement is leading into the planning process and obviously the budget and the funding process moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Commissioner Kemp is recognized.
Thank you. It's a lot to take in. But did you say at the beginning, and maybe I heard you or misheard you, that facilities weren't part of this?
No, facilities are part of it. What we usually do, we break all the assets into individual components. So if you take a building, usually find structures, the structural foundation, the walls, the roof, the windows, the staircases, electrical, plumbing, all of these assets usually are line item by line item listed. However, most agencies don't do that detailed accounting. So at this point, we were not able to capture all those individual items. However, what we did, we looked at all the assets, and for the 10-year period, those were identified who will be replaced. So in terms of the state of good repair need, that is covered. What is not covered is to fully understand what is the complete value of the asset base. So actually one of the actions that HART will take is get a complete inventory of all the facility assets.
And the difference between, because it looks like one of the large categories in the state of need is equipment versus rolling stock. Rolling stock being our buses are a huge part. But so what's the distinction? Is equipment like repair or what is that?
So equipment is basically all vehicles that are non-revenue vehicles. So there are lots of trucks, vans out there that are being used by HART employees to go out to sites, things like that. Then all the equipment in the workshops. So you have lifts, you have hoists, you have welding machines. All of those assets are in there. All the IT assets. So all the software, all laptops, desktops, the network, Wi-Fi, all of these assets, furniture, everything that's in here, all of these assets are in the category equipment.
Thank you.
Mr. McLean, you recognize.
Yeah, 2 questions, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm assuming that most, if not all this, is already being done. and we're basically taking that information and putting it into the proper format that the state now requires. Am I correct?
Yes, so we are developing the bigger report right now. This is kind of just a summary of some of the financial results. Obviously, there's more around the implementation plan and things like that. So within the next 4 to 6 weeks, we're going to have that report completed.
Okay, great. And last question, does this include streetcar?
So the streetcar vehicles are included. The infrastructure here on the EBOR facility, so the tracks, switches, catenary, substation, those are included. The line infrastructure and stations and substation catenary, all those are not included.
Ms. Williams, recognized.
Thank you, Chair. My question is centered around the $17 million a year it's going to cost us, basically a forecast, and we're budgeted looks like $8.5 million. And as we, I guess, forecasted it 10 years out, do we account for technology changes, infrastructure changes, or enhancements, or those things, or do we take a like-for-like scenario? And then the other aspect is when you look at our percent of assets, our assets overall, I wonder what our percentage of repair is and how that is compared to others that are in like industries. I don't have a frame of reference to know that based on what you're telling me.
So first question was around the like replacement. Obviously, we did not go through each asset and try to forecast what the technology change would be. So we really assume there's a replacement cost to the asset today. We're not changing the asset base, so we're not anticipating service go up or down, so we're taking the complete same asset base, and then we are escalating the value of today's replacement cost into the future. Some will have technology changes that will actually be more expensive. Some will have technology changes a lot in the IT area where costs are actually going down. We did not go to that level of detail to maneuver that. The $17 million is really the need in terms of funding. What is important to understand that this funding gap between the 17 and the currently estimated 8.5, that funding gap needs to be addressed from two sides. One is what can HART do to its asset base and how it's managing its assets to make it more efficient. So really to reduce the need. So for example, instead of using a laptop computer, and they're just taking random numbers, instead of 3 years, you can use it 5 years. So that means the replacement need would be stretched by 2 years. And as you can imagine, a computer needs to be replaced every 3 years. So every 5 years is actually a pretty significant leverage of reducing the need over time. If you do that across all assets, there's quite a significant improvement that can be achieved. On the other side, to close that gap is look at the funding. But it's not, and HART never understood it that way, that this information is being taken to just ask for more funding. It needs to be this approach of closing that gap from both sides. Does that address your question?
And the last question is, on our assets, what percentage is what we consider normal based on the amount of repair we would have against our assets?
What do you understand with repair of your assets? So when you maintain an asset, obviously you do inspections, you do preventative maintenance, and you do, if something breaks, repairs. So some of them are coming out of a capital budget. If you replace an engine on a bus, that may come out of a capital budget. But others are just taken out of your operating budget because it's not a major overhaul or replacement of a capital asset. So it's really a picture of both. And we did not go into the repair history of your assets to understand, does HART have a good process in place to maintain the assets well? That's going to probably be one of the actions to really understand, is the maintenance really the most sophisticated and following modern philosophies, or is it kind of a find and fix philosophy? So they let it break down and then have to fix it then. Obviously for major assets that's not the case, but there are different philosophies, and at this point we haven't looked into that, but that would be one of the areas HART will look into to improve the asset base and the efficiency of the asset base.
Okay. I'm just thinking we will need a baseline to understand how we move forward over 10 years. Say 2% of our assets are always going to need repair, 3% based on the value. I don't know that number at all, so maybe that'll give me some perspective as I look at the numbers going forward. Thank you.
Commissioner Murphy, recognized.
Thank you, and this is a quick question for Mr. Seward. So what of this is not funded? Like you say, you have some of this in your current budget already?
We have the normal, the regular funding amount that he showed you of the $8 million.
Right.
Or actually for 19 it'll be 8.8. That's in the budget. But
Every year, you put about that much in the budget every
Yes.
year. Okay, so if we want to get back up to, say, good repair, then we need the difference between 8.5 million and 17 million. Is that correct? I guess I was just trying to get in context. The purpose of the presentation is to kind of show us we have a gap, but what's the funding actual number?
correct. We need about $17.3 million a year.
More over the 8.5? No, minus the 8.5.
Yes.
No,
Total of 7.
it's total.
So you need
Yeah,
17.
so minus 8.5.
Yes.
Okay, I was just trying to
Yes.
process this. Okay, thank
Mr.
you.
Melendez, you recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for a fine presentation. I think it's great information, and just the way you presented it was very clear. Really appreciate it. One question, and I'll go to the. There's not a slide number here, but it's basically one of the slides that has the bar graphs that show the amount of rolling stock, which was in blue. It seems that there's definitely an assumption on a traditional rolling stock supply model, if you will, in your numbers. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. So there's kind of an unknown. I'll call it an innovation factor that you can't predict. That could theoretically, depending upon the direction of our organization from an innovation standpoint, from changing technology that just can't be accounted for in this presentation. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you. That's all.
Ms. Shanahan, recognized.
Just a quick question in terms of the FTA. Their expectation is that every organization has a TAM, and does it affect our budget or allocation from them if you don't have this?
Your first question is yes, they require it. 2, right now it isn't part of their triennial review process, but it will be. It will be part of the triennial process. So it could affect your funding down the road if you don't meet the requirements of the TAM.
And we have something due October 1st, 2018.
Yes, the first initial report, which is the compilation of what you see here.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Budget overview.
This is just easier from the podium. I get animated during budget time. So it's just an easier process. So, good morning again. This morning, as we go to the final weeks of budget preparation, I wanted to give the board an overview of where we are right now. And the presentation that you just saw will obviously play into some components of not only this year's budget planning, but our out-year budget planning. And I'll touch on that a little bit as I move forward. During the last 2 weeks of August, after our Audit and Finance Committee meeting, I will be setting up the typical one-on-ones for board preparation for the meetings next month. However, we'll be setting up one-on-ones to go over the specific detail of the finalized budget that comes out of that committee meeting. So to let you know that today is an overview, but in the next few weeks I will be setting up that time to sit down and go over with you as detailed as you would like before the next board meeting or before our first public hearing in September. So over the last few years, this has been a commonplace slide that I have had. I even showed it this year. Although the one key component of it did change, and I will touch on that in a few minutes. So we talk about pressures, and pressures or challenges, not in a negative connotation, but just the fact that we have to address those as we develop a budget for a public agency. And they pretty much stay static every year. Cash flow and fund balance, we've talked about the importance many, many times of how cash flow centric this organization is. Primarily based on our federal use of formula funding for operating, puts us in a position that we have to spend a dollar before we get that dollar of federal back. So we have to balance that very well through the year. The second component is the fund balance, which again is our bank account. And we've talked many, many times on the need to build that, not only for emergencies, since we are a self-insured organization. We saw the amount of assets and the amount it would take to replace our entire rolling fleet at any one time based on an event. And I can tell you, just based on our typical fund balance, that would never happen. So we have to build that up. Secondly, not just for cases of emergency for reserve, but for our matches for federal and state grant programs. I had discussions with FDOT over the last week, and we have the opportunity to gain a few more $1 million of grants next year. But we've been pretty lucky that most of our state grants have not required matches. These will require matches. So we're going to have to figure out and develop a matching strategy over the next year for those funds. Second pressure are, and again, not a negative, just something we have to address, are our bargaining agreements. Both of our collective bargaining units are going into negotiations for new contracts this year. We are actively in pursuit of one contract right now. They will not be completed prior to the September public hearings. They typically, they never are. We have to come back to you, most likely after the beginning of the year, with one, contract ratification, and two, the respective amendment to the budget for additional revenues if that is the case. Decrease in ridership. Even though we did adjust with Mission Max, we are still seeing decreases in ridership, not as drastic as we have seen year to year with our prior service model, but we are still seeing some drops. So that affects revenue. Increases in cost of doing business. Our staff has done a fantastic job in mitigating a lot of some of those costs of doing business issues that we had over the last few years, including healthcare, our risk management. Miss Lee and her staff have done a phenomenal job of cutting that back to a manageable, budgetable level. And we continue to see that. However, if you filled up your tank lately, you've noticed that fuel costs are increasing. Even though we have a fantastic fuels contract that we lead for the region, we are still seeing spikes in the cost of fuel. As a matter of fact, you'll see when we get to the expense side, we're looking at an additional $2 million of expense next year for diesel fuel increases based on what we budgeted this year. So we are affected just as the trucking industry, just as other transit agencies, and the cost of doing business we have to deal with as well. I'm going to skip that cute little orange dot and move to the next one. We are adding $4 million of service. We talked extensively after Mission Max that we would do two things. We would continue to look at underperforming routes and bring recommendations back to the board, either for their elimination or for adjustment. And two, we would continue to look at and listen to the needs of the community on where routes were needed. So this $4 million includes the additional funding for service for the streetcar. It includes 275LX, which was initiated on July 1st, and the new 48 that runs through Temple Terrace. So even though we did cut service last year, this year's budget had half of a year of that service. Next year's will have a full year, and those are included there in the budget. So the little orange dot that is added for this specific conversation is the possible transit referendum. We may not know until this evening whether or not there are enough signatures on the petition drive to actually get it on the ballot. But we couldn't ignore the fact that conversation is occurring. And we can't ignore the fact that possibly by tomorrow morning we will find out that it is certified for the November ballot. We don't know, but we had to plan anyway. However, planning has been on whiteboards. You will not see a specific addressing of it in the current proposed budget for 2019. So I'll talk a little bit more about the impacts of that potential referendum on the budget and overall planning strategy for HART later in this presentation. So you've seen this, and I won't belabor this. In FY19, specifically for the planning and what we've been working on since the beginning of the year, are pretty much these strategies. We have focused on charter organization needs. We've talked to Temple Terrace. We've talked to the City of Tampa. We worked with unincorporated Hillsborough County on what exactly is needed in those areas and what can be afforded. And that has been the focus and is for FY19. We're going to continue building on 2018 service efficiencies. 275LX is so far it's only been since July, but it's popular. 48 is very popular. We're looking at 200,000 riders a year on that line. We've done a lot internally in cost controls over the last year or over the last component of fiscal year. But we're going to continue those strategies into 19. Engaging the business community. We have to do a much better job at that, and we are for 19 with plans on addressing particularly those employers that felt possibly slighted through Mission Max, is sitting down with them and understanding exactly what their needs are to get employees to their businesses, and potentially working out some programs where there can be some employee subsidizing of transit fares. Possible partnerships with circulators or routes. So again, that'll be a focus moving into the next years too. Aggressively seek federal and state funding. We've talked about this at every board meeting, and we will continue to do so. We have active federal grants out right now, requests. We will continue to do that. As a matter of fact, we have a tentative trip to DC planned in September in support of these grant applications with our delegation as well as the FTA, and I will be providing more information to you about that trip. I'm hoping for some board attendance as we fly north to discuss our grants. And then continue fiscally responsible spending. Irrespective of role, this will always be a mantra of the budgeting process at HART. Again, the reminder to staff is it's not our money, it's the taxpayers' money. And we have to be very cognizant of that as we develop the 19 budget or any budget. So our service enhancements, I mentioned that we would continue that and we would have enhancements in FY19. You see it here, the 275LX, again, service from Pasco County, and it really is a regional route. From Pasco County to the downtown core and then to the airport. First 30-minute service to the airport that HART has ever had. Route 48 through Temple Terrace, still getting good feedback from that. Streetcar, starting on October the 7th, we are going to see a 75% increase in service starting at 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. with 15-minute frequencies. And then we roll back to 20. This week, Tuesday night and Wednesday night, I will be presenting the streetcar service expansion to the cognizant downtown CRAs. They have funded very ambitiously over FY18 the free Saturday service. Well, obviously all days will be free next year, but we would like to engage them in continuing some level of investment to possibly extend that 15-minute frequency into the evenings or on the weekends. So there's still dialogue to be had with them, and we will be having it this week to see what else we can grow that service. Something that I have not mentioned to you, and I didn't want to until we actually were sure that we were getting very close to moving this forward. Something that we have talked about for years, and we just didn't move forward with for a myriad of reasons. And we're going to experiment with it this year, and we are going to do a stadium shuttle pilot with various park and rides throughout the community back and forth to home Buckets games. So there are many transit agencies across the country that have sports teams, major teams, that provide this service, and we are going to see how it goes. We have a site directly across from the stadium, and through some misunderstanding, we have thought that we were not allowed to go into that area during game time. We're finding that's not necessarily the case, so we're going to try to see what we can do with this service, particularly during this football season. The Uptowner, the Innovation District Circulator, it is included in the FY19 budget. We will continue to work with Mr. Sharp and that group on ensuring that the public-private partnership does include the private part. We will work with them over the next few months, ensuring that those agencies or those organizations are still on board and will contribute to that service next year. We're still in discussions about the Downtowner. There may be an opportunity for some grant funding. We've talked about HART taking over the Downtowner. We will continue those discussions over the next few months. And then collaboration with Enterprising Latinas for South County Circulator. We were waiting to find out the actual funding from the county. That has been solidified. So we continue to work with them and will work with them on the deployment of that circulator in South County. And I'll report back to you later once the budgets are all secured on exactly what that looks like. But we have been engaged with them and have been and will continue to be. And thank you to the county and Commissioner Merman for moving that forward. Those are service enhancements. These are other enhancements that we're looking at this year that aren't as sexy as service, but as you saw with the last presentation on the state of good repair, we do have to make investments in-house. And one of those, we're continue the deployment of the Flamingo Smart Card, not just here, but regionally. We are in the process of a BRT study for the Florida, Nebraska, Fowler to USF area and downtown corridors. We will be conducting that analysis. We're in, and this will come up again later in the board meeting, a paratransit efficiency study. As promised earlier this year, that we would have a firm come in and take a hard look at how we run para. We have awarded that to Transpro, Mr. Ash's, Mark Ash's organization, and you'll also be hearing from his organization today again on the Voice of the Customer. A bus stop study. We haven't had a true bus stop study done since, I believe, 2008, and that's an analysis of not only the state of good repair of those stops, but their location. Are they effective? Are they where they need to be? Do they need to be moved? We are going to engage in a study to look at every bus stop. We did eliminate about 800 bus stops through Mission Max, but that wasn't an efficiency study. That was just an elimination of those stops. So we will continue moving forward and looking at our infrastructure. Our continued ADP deployment for internal process improvements. We talked to you last year when the board approved the ADP contract. I may be coming back to report to you on some issues with this implementation, but as of right now, this morning, we are still moving forward with that. CAD AVL, that's the brains of our transit system, and it is past its useful life. We have to update it, and we need to renovate. And we will be looking at a study and a group coming in to actually help us define those requirements now that technology has been advancing. Again, our collective bargaining negotiations and a refocus on sustainability. A few years ago, we brought forward an environmental policy. We have an ESMS program. We were certified as one of only a handful of transit agencies in the United States. It was 14,001 certified. However, over the last couple of years, we are, with our focus on Mission Max and a few other initiatives, we've kind of backstepped a little bit, and we want to reinvigorate that and move forward with recertification of 14,001 in FY19. So the detail, well, high-level detail. So we're looking at, in the FY18 budget, we're looking at a $70.5 million adopted budget for this year. For FY19 proposed, we're looking at a $9.9 million increase to our revenues. Now I'll discuss what that is in a second. So our proposed budget for FY19 right now as it stands is $80.5 million. So a couple of things I want to point out with these bullets. We are shifting fare revenue to smart cards. This number may be adjusted a little depending on what our deployment strategy looks like in the next fiscal year for Flamingo. So it isn't a loss of revenue, it's just shifting that revenue to smart cards. We're looking at adjusting revenue down for fares by $1.3 million due to trends in ridership. That was not unexpected. It does include $2.3 million of county funding, which was put into the budget last year for service. And based on the conversations held at the BOCC meeting, we have included that back into the budget. What is not included is the $2.1 million of additional funds that was discussed earlier during the CEO discussion. So that money is not there. And if it was able to have the requirements met for that, we would come back next year and amend the budget appropriately with a plan to support that $2.1 million. But again, it is not in this revenue model that you see right here. So we have property values, and those from the municipalities and the county know that property values are escalating. And we saw a 10% increase for HART in the property valuations. It's a $4 million increase in ad valorem. We are moving more federal dollars to operating. Increase in FDOT funding. $1.2 million for the 275LX for next year. $100,000 for Route 48. $270,000 for the Uptowner and $890,000 for the streetcar. Now, that's $890 for the streetcar. You may recall we were awarded $2.7. The $2.7 doesn't come in one hefty wad of money. It has to be divided up through those 3 years. So that's the vision for next year. We are looking at ways to extend that free fare for the 4th year, but I'll be reporting back to you on that later in the fall. Shifting of FDOT Hyperlink funding to Route 48. Shifting of City of Tampa funding from the N-Towner to the streetcar. And $405,000 Uptowner contribution through the public-private partnerships, which I had mentioned earlier. That is very important. The public-private partnership is not a public-private partnership without the private part. And we will continue to discuss that with that group. Expenses. Again, state of Florida requires revenues balanced with expenditures. Increase in diesel gallons and price per gallon of 1.7. No. So another $1.7 million budgeted into next year's budget from where we are this year for diesel. And again, we understand we are moving away from diesel to compressed natural gas, but we still have a very good component of our fleet that's diesel, and we will continue to have to pay for those that cost. Increase in bus parts. We had, during my CEO update today, I'm going to introduce our new Director of Maintenance. We're going to be working very closely with him on exactly what the needs are. Again, you heard the conversation on the state of good repair and the importance of having the equipment and the parts necessary to maintain that state of good repair. Flamingo implementation, $700,000 for next year. This was planned all along. This is nothing out of the ordinary or unplanned. It's what we need to do to move forward for final implementation of the regional project. ADP, again, in line with the contract. And again, I may be coming back and having a discussion concerning that contract with you. General liability claims increase to $300,000. This isn't just because it isn't due to a spike. It's to true up what we need to have budgeted versus what we have budgeted. Marketing for the streetcar and increased service. We're adding $220,000 to the marketing budget for the streetcar. Even though we're moving to free fares and expanded service, if we truly want the ridership that warrants, we need to spend the money on getting the word out. And we will be doing that over the next year. And a contingency budget this year of $1.5 million set aside for the unknowns. And something that we have tried to do in 18, what was it in 18? 350,000. See, all right. So we had a contingency this year of 350. We're looking at a 1.5 million contingency for next year. And if I can go back one, we're looking at a $1.184 million drop to fund balance at the end of next year as well. So the strategy and one of our goals is always to be able to drop $3 million in it. That was honestly an arbitrary number that we chose going into FY18. We are going to refine that goal, but budgeting to be able to drop anything into fund balance is a benefit and goes with our our goal of building that fund up. So I am going to spend a little bit of time on this slide. I didn't do a very good job of describing it the last time you saw this slide. So the last slide that you saw concerning FTEs for next year, we had a clear number at the top that said we were adding 51 to the 19 budget. But let me clarify what that means. There are only 19 new positions being added in 19, and I'm going to focus on the new first. The new positions, 8 operators for paratransit. Paratransit is not losing ridership. Paratransit is increasing ridership, and we need the operators. We have 1 bilingual paratransit travel trainer, 2 fixed route supervisors, 6 operators, therefore the streetcar, which is fully funded, 1 streetcar supervisor, fully funded, and 1 streetcar mechanic, fully funded. So there are no operators being added to our fleet for next year except for the streetcar and para. So where did the 51 number come from, Mr. Seward? I will tell you. During Mission Max and preparation for the 18 budget, there was an expectation that we were going to eliminate or lower the number of FTEs required going into the current fiscal year, which is 18. They weren't budgeted because we didn't think they were going to be necessary or needed. A change of policy kept those drivers and operators in-house on the budget. They were never budgeted. What we are doing, we are adding those 36 to the 19 budget because they're already being paid under the 18 budget, thus leaving that flat over 18. So we're simply truing up what we didn't address in 18. So again, we had 36 FTEs that we thought were absolutely not going to be required in 18. We were incorrect. We needed those 36. They've been on payroll. They've been filled. We need to pull them over to FY19. So the only new positions for next year are those 19. And again, it is not for fixed route. It is for para and streetcar. The last time you saw this slide, there was a $4.3 million deficit, and I said at that time that was spectacular because they're typically in the tens. We are balanced. We have money going to fund balance. We have additional service. We have a reserve set up. We have a balanced budget. This slide will not change between now and the public hearings because it can't. Any addition to this would have to be mitigated. So again, let me go back to the $2.1 million of potential additional funding from the county. That wouldn't help or hurt our deficit. If that money was made available, we would have a plan. It would come in as a revenue, and we would expense it back out. So that being said, I just wanted to put that back out on the table again. So we have a zero deficit as of right now. Again, in the last 2 weeks of August, I will be sitting down with you and giving you a much more detailed overview of the budget. And then any questions that you may have prior to that, I can be prepared for that. But right now, we feel very confident with this budget that is in preparation to be presented to you, particularly with the additions of service. The in-house changes, we have the Fowler, Florida BRT study being completed. So we feel very confident where we're going with the budget. Okay, so I had mentioned that a lot of the planning, the discussions right now on the tentative referendum have been on whiteboards. It's on a whiteboard and a slide. So we know right now, as of 5:30 on Friday, that there's still one district that is a little bit short in its requirement. However, we know that if it is on the ballot, it is a very compressed time frame between obviously now and November. So we're going to have to hit the ground running as soon as we find out whether, if it is. If it's not, we have a balanced budget, we'll move forward status quo. If we find out it is, there's a series of things that we need to take and take action on within the week. First and foremost, Public Resource Advisory Group, PRAG, they did the work for Go Hillsborough. They're under contract with the county. They work for the county, and we are cited in their contract. So all we need to do is reach out and engage them. I already have a scope of work sitting in my email queue, ready to go. We would bring them in. They would do financial modeling on cash flows, looking at our current revenues, balancing it to the transit development plan, which would be the base for any new service, and have them work with us now through November in developing those. Brian Miller Olive, they're the bond counsel for the county. Again, also, HART can use them. They would come in and look at bonding and borrowing strategies for that additional funding as well. We're in the process right now of refining the adopted 10-year TDP vision plan to accommodate that discussion for November. And working with Mr. Smith, we will let the agency know of exactly what staff can and cannot do. We know that nice little rhyme working for government agencies. We can advocate, but we cannot, or we cannot advocate, we can only educate. I almost got that wrong. No advocacy, no advocacy. So again, we can't advocate, but we can educate, and that's what we want to be able to prepare for. And I wanted to show this slide today specifically because there were a couple of questions on, wow, what if it's getting on the ballot, that changes the budget. No, it doesn't. It doesn't change the budget getting on the ballot. It changes the budget getting passed at the ballot. So in any event, we have to be ready. We have to be able to pull the trigger pretty quickly if it is on the ballot and it does pass. So to that point, I wanted to bring up a couple of things, and this does go to the asset management discussion. I wanted to report to you today that we have been in negotiations with Sarasota County. Sarasota County has gone through sort of they cut a lot of routes, and they have resources that they are looking to get rid of. So last week, maintenance staff went to Sarasota, looked at the rolling fleet assets that they are wanting to liquidate, and we are working right now to bring to you at the committee in August, and then to the first public hearing, the purchase of 8 buses from Sarasota County. Now, that cost is about $1.4 million. If we were to buy those buses brand new, it would be about $4.2 million, saving us about $2.5 million by doing that. They still have useful life. They're in good condition. The 275LX riders will be happy to know they also have luggage racks on them for the airport. So why does this play into the discussion on the referendum? It's twofold. One, if we were needed, if we made it through the process and we got to November and it passed, we would be in the position to have additional vehicles roll out and increase frequency almost immediately. The trolleys, the in-towner trolleys that we eventually or originally had planned on giving to PSTA, we pulled back, and they're all sitting on our lot right now at 21st. Those are 8 trolleys. So they are being held as well. So theoretically, we would have 16 to 18 vehicles ready to go immediately following any decision on a referendum in November, where we could add frequency or circulators within a few weeks period of time, knowing that we have the operators. I know I'm getting that look now from staff. Knowing we have enough operators to do that. So if there is no referendum, we use those 8 buses from Sarasota County to replace our aging fleet, helping with our state of good repair baseline. And we decide what to do with the trolleys, whether or not they be circulators, something that we can do elsewhere. But we want to leverage those assets as long as we possibly can for a just-in-case scenario. So I wanted to make you aware of that. The committee, again, will see it this month, but it will come to the board next month for approval for the purchase of those buses. So upcoming budget-related events, we go again to the committee on the 20th. September 10th and 24th are evening public hearings where you will consider, and the last one consider and hopefully adopt the FY19 budget. And then I put a new line up there, winter, spring, FY 2019. If there is a successful referendum, we would have to come back to you in the January, February timeframe and amend the budget to reflect that revenue
and potential expenditure of the transit development plan. So there's a lot of maybe what ifs, but I wanted to ensure to let you know that we're aware of those discussions and we are planning for them. And that concludes my presentation.
Mr. Mechanic, you recognize.
Mr. Seward, you mentioned the in terms of the prep for the referendum that we would be refining the adopted 10-year TDP vision plan. When would you anticipate bringing that before the board?
Within the next 30 days, it would be to the September public hearings.
Okay. So, and then that would be the predicate on which any new service, which would occur as a result of the referendum, that would be, those projects would be the basis for any new service, right?
Correct. And the financial advisors, that will be the base. We will provide the division TDP plan, all of our revenues, new revenues, and they will model how, one, to support our current service, and then two, how to adapt. Because the language is very specific. Even though it's 45%, that 45% is split between current service and fixed guideway. So there has to be the discussion on how that money will be divided and utilized pursuant to our TDP. We're not going to suddenly come up with a new Go Hillsborough plan in 30 days. It's going to be the TDP. So, yes, that answers your question.
Commissioner White, you recognize.
You know, I just want to be very careful that whatever we do to update the TDP doesn't even remotely begin to look like advocacy, because, you know, up until the point that the voters do or do not pass a referendum in November, it's a political issue up to that point. How much money will it cost this board or this agency to do this work? Because I know we're utilizing outside help, right?
So, yes. And with Prague, even though I have the proposal in my desk, I haven't looked at it yet. I'm still waiting to. I can't give you an exact amount of dollars, but there will be money spent on bringing them in, helping us do the financial. Updating the TDP, and I wanted to clarify, when we say we're not suddenly adding a bunch of projects in based on $120 extra million a year, it's refining based on what we have to do anyway each year. Each year we have to provide an update to the TDP to the board. And that's actually what we're in the process of doing, that you will be presented in September for approval. So it isn't a bastardization of the TDP to accommodate these funds. It's updating the TDP based on what our current schedule for FDOT is anyway. So, but I can get you, after this evening, if we find out we're moving forward, I will present to the board the amount of funding that would be required to get us prepared for it.
Yeah, I'd like to see those figures. And again, as my opinion, one board member, I just want to make sure that we don't cross that line into advocacy. I do also have a question about the proposed stadium shuttle pilot. Will that be subsidized with tax dollars like other routes?
Yes.
Okay. I don't like that idea either. I think that if we're going to do it, that the fares should be set so that it's fully funded, or ask the Buccaneers to make a contribution to the level that it's fully funded.
Good luck.
And in fact, I'll take it a step further and say that if we're going to go down that path, we should possibly even look at a way for it to be revenue generating for this agency.
Kenyatta Lage, Chief Administrative Officer. So the goal with the pilot was to see the appetite for the community to actually use it. So that's why we're in the process of actually running that through. If there's not an appetite, then we'll make changes. But the long-term goal is not just to have it for the stadium, but for other sporting events as well.
Well, I'd like to see if there's an appetite for the Buccaneers to fund the Delta as this pilot. Then if it's going to work, then maybe we can make an agreement with the Bucs and we can have a shuttle. But, the bottom line is I don't see those routes benefiting anyone other than the Buccaneers organization.
All right, and I think their interest would be more applicable if we have a proof of concept. as a part of it, and that's why we wanted to run the pilot.
Yeah.
But
Well,
we are working with the Tampa-based sporting,
Yeah.
sporting authority as well as the city of Tampa on the police side to make sure everything goes smoothly.
my personal opinion is if we're going to do the pilot, I think the Bucks should be a partner. So I'd like to talk about that further as we go through the budget process.
Commissioner Murray, you recognize.
Thank you. I don't think it's Buccaneers at all. I think it's the Tampa Sports Authority. And actually, I would say I would say contact Eric Hart at the Tampa Sports Authority, because anything touching that stadium goes through him. It doesn't go directly to the Buccaneers. So, and if possible, if he's not interested, I think, we can cross that other bridge. But I would definitely get in touch with Eric Hart.
We have been working with them, but we presented this as an option, so we weren't necessarily looking for funding, but we are going to be working on sponsorship opportunities for the actual shuttle.
Well, I think they're in pretty good financial shape, and I think you could, since it's a pilot, I don't think it's going to involve a lot of funding, but I think it would benefit them, especially with concerts that they have at that stadium. In fact, they have a big one coming up. So I think that's the avenue you should probably take.
Yes, and we'll follow up with him
Right.
and we'll report back.
And I think you could say the HART board members would like you to consider it, especially those on the county commission. That might get their attention.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
Mr. Mechanic, you recognize.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I previously sat on the Sports Authority, and it's actually correct that both the Sports Authority and the Bucks benefit from revenues surplus over the Buccaneers games, and it works. And I don't want to cite the exact figures because I don't recall them, but after a certain amount of dollars that are returned to the Bucks for, again, non-Bucks events, then there is a sharing arrangement between the Sports Authority and the Buccaneers for revenues above that threshold amount. And so, in fact, both the Sports Authority and then ultimately the public would benefit as well as the Buccaneers from increased revenues there.
Right.
Shannon, you recognize.
Yeah, I just had and this is just going to be so we're looking for a 15% increase in base revenue or base budget, approximately 70 to 80 million. And we have decreased ridership. Would you say that's a takeaway? What's our ridership down year over year? As a percentage.
About $1 million.
As a percentage. I mean, I'm trying to do percentages.
13%.
Yeah, okay. So, sort of a trade. We're asking for 15% more revenue, and we're down 13% in ridership. And I'm just trying to put a public taxpayer face on this. So I understand all the categories and all the ads, and I think paratransit is something that we're underfunding or duplicative funding or not coordinated funding with the county, and I just want to make a point that as we go through the next month, that there's a real serious look at additional funding for additional services. So when somebody says to me 36 people are not in the budget, I don't know what that means. So then you say that it's a balanced budget, but 36 people aren't in the budget. What does that mean?
36 people they're not being paid in the budget. So there's 36 people right now that are on payroll that were not in the budget, that were not in the 18 budget. Their FTEs weren't there, their salary dollars weren't there, because we thought we were going to eliminate them. Not the people, the positions. However, we kept those. So through this entire year, we've been paying those 36 people. So to make a true up for the 19 budget, I need to now budget for those 19 people to match the actual expenditures that we have had over the last year.
So the 70 million would be what number if the 36 recurring full-time equivalents were in the budget? What would that number actually be?
What? 74? Up 74 million.
Okay. So that's where I get and I will spend time with you on the budget, and I'll make my comments to the board. I mean, That's where we lose credibility. What did we say we were going to save on Marine Max? And we did we save any of the money that we projected we were going to save?
As of now, we've saved about $2 million.
And that accounts for the 36 people that we didn't.
But we've eaten it up elsewhere.
No. I'm just saying, I understand that. It can be reallocated. I have no problem with that. But
Yes.
we went to the public and said Marine Max was going to do this. And so did we achieve that in any capacity near that? And where do these 36 people fit into that if they were supposed to be positions saved and yet they're still here?
So they are. So in answer to your question, yes, we've saved about $2 million based on that model.
Right.
Those 36 are part of that lack of savings, as well as we would have saved more if it hadn't been for keeping the 36.
Okay. What did we say to the public we were going to save?
$6.6 million.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Suarez, Councilman Suarez recognized.
Thank you. Jeff, a couple of things. First, for the sake of the public, if this referendum gets on the ballot and it gets passed, let's say, the money will start flowing in January. Is that correct? When will it come to us?
It starts collected in January. We probably wouldn't see the first inflow until February. But yes.
Until February, somewhere in that area. And I know, obviously, we've talked about this, that we're going to have a budget change in order to accept those dollars. And I think that, and this is to Commissioner White's issue, I think we ought to be putting that away, and we probably can, in order to allow us to get our budget ready for whatever we're going to do. Because as a policy board, we're going to make those decisions as to what we're going to spend the money for based on public input and everything else. And of course, if we change any routes or extend them or increase them, we're going to have public hearings regardless. So, to Commissioner White's point, it isn't, looking at the TDP every time we need to isn't an advocacy exercise, and it won't be, because we won't have any money until sometime in the first quarter of next year. So I think it's important to have contingencies just in case if we wanted to expand certain services and having the money to do so. I think it's important to do that. I would ask about the people that were engaging on doing some of these things now. I think it's Prague, you call it Prague, and some of the other ones. Is there any way that we can do it on a contingency basis until we get some of those dollars in? Because to be honest with you, the financial modeling for all HART revenues, we're doing it based on the fact that we might have more revenues. Correct?
Correct.
Okay.
However,
so my guess, my point is that can they do it in a contingency starting in November if that does get passed?
They could start at any time.
Okay. The reason I'm asking is because I don't want to spend money on something that may or may not happen, as opposed to something that has happened. So if we look at November 7th, which is the day after the election, we say, oh, now we know that it's passed. We know that we have to be prepared for it and start engaging them at that point, that we can engage them now instead the contingency won't be until after the referendum.
And I have obviously no issue with that.
Yeah.
As long as the expectation is of the board and the community that by December the 1st, we don't have new service on the street that we're not prepared to do.
Yeah, I think that everybody's going to understand that once we go through this process. It's going to be not until fiscal year of 20 that we're going to actually have some kind of real plan for what we're going to use those dollars for if it comes to fruition. And that's why I don't want to engage these guys until after we know that we're going to have extra money. So since you haven't looked at the contract yet, take this as a kindly ask to look at that portion of it and say, what needs to be done. So because I'd rather us pay after as opposed to before. Okay, thank you. Thank you,
Mr.
Jeff.
Mendez, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Jeff, for the presentation. Comment on the stadium shuttle concept or idea. As part of a larger framework and a concept I'll call integrated mobility and our role in that moving forward, I like the idea. However, I just want to kind of bookmark and piggyback on Commissioner White's comments that from when I think about partnership and equity, and I know that you're very, your fiscal I guess, focus is something I've always appreciated, and I've said that. But as we look at this pilot, I see it as an opportunity to model equitable partnerships with the private sector. So I'll be looking at this and talking with you as needed, and I want to keep an open dialogue because I have every expectation that partners with deep pockets will be paying their equitable share. And on the other side of the coin, on the transportation dependent side, some of whom are in the audience today that I can see that I recognize from past board meetings. From today moving forward, I plan to ensure that we're not jumping over the transportation dependent to serve choice riders or enhanced service. I just want to make that clear today.
Any other questions? Commissioner, oh Lord.
Me or
All right,
her?
Commissioner Murray, recognized.
This is quick. I agree with Councilman Suarez and Commissioner White. First of all, we don't want to jinx ourselves and get too far ahead of ourselves. That would be not a good idea. It would not look good to the public. Second, after the referendum would pass, this is going to involve this board, extensive planning, engagement with the community. We have to engage with the community to see, given these dollars, where do they want us to spend them? And I feel really strongly about that this is not our money, it's their money. And we have to spend it according to what their wishes are. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Hart, did I see your hand?
Yes, sir. I just had a quick question. So at a more granular level on the actual budget that we're going to need to take action on, wouldn't it be appropriate to have to budget these expenses that are required for us, the deferred maintenance expenses, even if we have to offset those by a negative number, the deferred maintenance that we're pushing forward onto future boards?
We can, and one component, and I forgive me for not mentioning this. This is the operating budget. We're still working on the capital budget, and part of the reason we're still working on it, one, we wanted the board to hear the state of good repair. So we will look at the cost of deferring, the cost of not deferring, what we can do over the next 5 years on the state of good repair. So it is a lot more deeper delineation of those numbers, and we'll have those for you.
All right, thank you. Then one more question, but when you report back to Commissioner White, could we understand what the cost per trip is to run the shuttle to the stadium?
We're in the process of developing the strategy now.
Great.
We will report back to the board very soon before we move forward with any stadium
I would think that, the business interest at the stadium side might look at it as loss of parking revenue, though I do think that, transit does need to be judged at a public good level, not, a particular service line. And obviously there's a public good in taking a lot of those trips off the street during those peak events, but I think that would be good information to have. So,
any other questions? Commissioner Campbell, recognized.
I just wanted to first thank you for, I think, presenting a really clear and difficult budget to present, considering all the factors you were taking in. I think it's a great thing to think about purchasing those buses, no matter what, from Sarasota, since they make sense and we have really improves our assets there, and to hold back on the trolleys right now, also in terms of as we move forward and be thinking about that's a very cost-effective way of getting ready for whatever may happen one way or the other in terms of what we have. The other thing in looking at this, I think you've had a really difficult budget to work with in terms of the you mentioned that a lot of other places are doing stadium service in other communities, so there must be some models in terms of the 3P for that we could look at, and I think that that's a good area to look at, as has been suggested. And finally, I just like to say that there is pretty much what I've seen as the watershed study looking at how ridership is down in so many places, but not in all of them, by the way, not at all in all of them. In fact, in Seattle, Portland, Toronto, other places, ridership has increased or stayed the same. And the number one factor they found is that during the recession years that people cut service like we did. And when you cut service, you reduce ridership. And that they found that was the number one reason for ridership going down. So I'm glad that we're investing to bring the old 57 or 48 back again. I think that's important. I think that the steps that you've taken in efficiency and looking at our ridership are really important. So I appreciate that and look forward to how we deal with this budget.
Stuart, thank you. Fixed route and paratransit voice of customer survey results.
Good morning. My name is Christopher Browning, and I'm with TransPro Consulting. Happy to be here and present these voice of the customer surveys with you. We'll talk about fixed route first, and then we'll transition over to paratransit. If you have any questions, we'll answer those at the end. So this is essentially going to give you a holistic picture of what your customers think about the HART service. It gives you an impression of what they feel during their trips. So real quickly, this is wave 5 for fixed route. We did this at the very end of April. The way we do these surveys are we put people on board and we ask real customers. We do a random sampling every 5 customers, and they have a list of questions that they answer. And we completed 528 surveys, all on board. And just a note, this was completed in April, so this is obviously after the Mission Max service was implemented. But before the new services were implemented on July 1st. So let's jump right into some of the highlights. Net Promoter Score is off the charts. Yes, sir.
Does everybody have the brief on their computer?
No. None of us
Should
do.
be on the, it's a PDF.
It's a PDF. Okay. That's
Yeah.
fine.
I have this one here.
Oh,
We
it's
were doing the
PDF.
slideshow. That's fine.
Okay. It's not a person. I got it.
There you go.
Okay.
Thank you.
Got it. Thank you, guys.
So the Net Promoter Score continues to be, yes, sir. The Net Promoter Score continues to be incredibly high. The industry average, we'll get to that in a couple minutes, but your customers really enjoy the service that you provide. Ridership is younger than it was in previous waves. 50% of your customers are between the ages of 18 and 29. That's much lower than it was in previous waves, but that could be based on the time of year. Many different factors go into that. Fewer riders are riding as frequently as they were a year ago. We'll talk about that in just a minute. And also, customers are transferring more often than in previous waves. Again, that could be an impact of the Mission Max changes. So frequency of HART use. As you can see, only about 52% of your folks are riding 5 days or more per week, with about 37% riding 3 or 4 days. And that's from about 20% in wave 4. So there could be a number of factors there. Again, with a younger population, you would think that they could be going to education more as opposed to going to every day for work. So again, the change of ridership. Are you riding as much as you have in the last 1 to 2 years? A pretty significant jump there from 11% in wave 4 said no, they are not, to 28% in wave 5 saying they are not riding as much as they have in the last 2 years. And of those, this is an interesting slide, it shows that travel time is far and away the most impactful reason that they are not riding as much as they did previously. Again, that could be attributed to a number of different factors, but it was just interesting for us to see personal transportation drop so significantly. So as we move forward in further waves, we'll see if a trend continues with that or if this wave just happened to be an anomaly. So let's move on to the Net Promoter Score. The Net Promoter Score is used across the nation in companies and government organizations as a way to assess what riders think of you and what customers think of your service. In this case, it's how likely are you to recommend HART service to friends and family. And we use the scale from a 0 to 10, and 0 to 6 are detractors. Those are folks that would absolutely not recommend you. Your passives are 7 and 8. Those are kind of in the middle. They don't count one way or the other. And then your promoters are 9s and 10s. And then what we get in the Net Promoter Score is we subtract the detractors from the promoters. So as we said, your net promotion score, your NPS, is off the charts. It's great. That's a great place to be. Industry average is about 33%, so you've just about doubled up on that. But it is something to consider that as you move forward, you want to keep maintaining that. So it's balancing what your operational side is doing versus what the customer impression side is. In this chart, you can see that your passives have actually decreased consistently over the past couple waves, down to 17%, whereas your promoters have gone up. So there's just a transfer from your passive customers to your promoter customers. Okay? So as you can see, your NPS is continuing to go up. So let's briefly talk about a couple of your satisfaction measurements. In this chart on the left graph, you can see your on-time bus performance has been not stagnant, but it was a little bit lower in the first 4 waves, and in wave 5 it jumped up to about 80%. Interestingly, your on-time performance is actually between 77 and 78%. So in this wave, your customers are rating that you are actually doing better than you actually are. That's a great place to be. Much more in line with industry average. You'll note in the middle graph that transferring is less easy than it has been in previous waves. So again, this is somewhere we want to take a look at and just see what those impacts are about why is transferring more difficult. The next 3 slides, I want to talk to you about your numbers are going up. You can tell that there's been a concerted effort by the board and by staff to improve all of these factors. The first being driver customer service. Courteousness, HART is focused on customer service, and the bus drivers being knowledgeable and helpful are clearly trending upwards. And again, we've discussed with staff, and they said that they've made an effort to provide in-service training and customer service training to the drivers. The same holds true for your customer service representatives, those that when folks call in and have questions, those are also headed in the right direction. The promptness of calls being answered, as well as helpfulness and courteousness of representatives. And lastly, for the fixed route, we have cleanliness. As you can tell, the last several waves, both the bus shelters being clean and the buses being clean were headed slightly down. And in this wave, they shot pretty high up, with the last one being a 35% increase for the bus cleanliness for fixed route. So I'll take a quick pause there. Any questions on fixed route?
Mr. Plain, you recognize.
Yeah, a couple questions. Ridership in younger, 50% increase, 18 to 29. Do we have a better breakout? Like, when did that start? You know, what kind of folks are actually riding the bus and all that?
Sure.
That's a significant increase, and I think that bodes well for us, particularly as we try to build out these communities. So.
Yes, sir, absolutely. We don't have that in this presentation, but we do have the full breakout we can use.
Okay. A little bit of discrepancy in a couple of your slides. First, in some of your slides, you only go 4 waves out, not 5. But I noticed that in one of the slides you mentioned, why are you not riding? And one was travel time. And that increased this last wave up to 45%. They're saying they're not riding because of travel time. But yet you show me another slide that says one of the reasons they like the bus is because travel times.
Right, you're looking at my slide here.
I'm looking at slide 12 is where they say it's increased, and they say you get to their destination in reasonable time. And then the other one I was referring to was slide 6, where they say travel time is a reason they're not riding.
Right, and sometimes the way the questions are asked, we ask them in multiple, getting to the same result multiple ways. So it's how they're answering it in a particular way. Sometimes it's just the customer and how they're asking those questions. But again, I think with this, that is a very large jump, significant jump from travel time being less than 10% as a factor of why they're not riding to the other number you see here. The other on page slide 12, the other thing to think about is this change in ridership are only for the only respondents to this question were customers that are not riding as much as they have in the last 1 or 2 years. Okay. So whereas in slide 12, this is
I got you.
it's all
So you got
it's all
popular.
customers. Correct, correct, yes, sir. So that variation may be a little stronger. Okay. All right, moving on to paratransit.
I want to
Yes, sir.
segue if I can.
Yes, sir.
So we just heard the fixed route voice to customer score, and a commitment that we made to the board as we moved forward with voice to customer as a key performance indicator for HART is to include para. It has never been included in a voice to customer wave before. We've been doing this for a couple of years and have never boarded a paratransit vehicle to do this process. Now, I want to make it very clear that the presentation you're going to see next is a little bit different than the presentation you're going to see immediately following by Ms. Burkhart. We are very, very much aware that when you do an onboard survey, there is a sample that you are talking to. You will hear during this presentation that sample that was selected, which is a statistical significant sample, will view HART para in one way, where we know that it isn't representational of individual issues that have come before this board in the last year. So the two need to be taken in. One is a statistical sample of the overall rider base of para. It says one thing, but we know that there are still individual issues that aren't covered in that sample. So we're not showing that presentation to say para is perfect. We know that it is not, and we know that it's far from perfect. But what we're showing is a statistical sample of the para base has one set of feelings. We will address the individual issues that have come before this board by individual riders and not from the sample, to give you some balance and to show that we are addressing those individual issues. But I think that the two have to be taken separately. So I just wanted to have that caveat.
Yes. Excuse me. Yes, sir. Thank you. And again, I think it is to your point, Mr. Seward, that every customer's voice is important. Just like on the fixed route side, you're going to have many customers that have complaints, and you're going to have many customers that may not agree with that 65% net promoter score. But the fact is, each individual customer is important, but our goal here is to get that representative sample across the board for the surveys. So we collected 247 surveys on board. This was a first for us in completing these surveys on board. And we contacted 242 customers with 5 caregivers of customers. A majority of the paratransit customers are above the age of 50. And again, as Mr. Seward alluded to, overall satisfaction of the paratransit service is very high, more than 8 out of 10 customers in each of the service categories. But again, not speaking towards some individual riders. So looking at some of the satisfaction levels, the purpose of HART paratransit use, about 67% are using it for medical purposes, to get to medical appointments, that type of thing. The next highest being getting to school at 18%. The availability, over more than 90% of customers agree that HART takes them to the places they need to go. And again, on paratransit, paratransit takes them anywhere within the service area of the fixed route system. Trip scheduling, 96% say that scheduling a trip is easy and convenient. So again, calling in, working with your customer service representatives. Satisfaction with drivers, 98% of customers feel that drivers are friendly. Okay? Drivers are helpful and drivers drive safely at 94%, with the overall rating, which is a separate question, not of some average of those three, is 96%. And you'll see the same with your customer service representatives, with a 93% customer care friendliness rating. 98% customer care representatives are helpful, and 94% of customer representatives are knowledgeable, with an overall rating of 93%. So again, this is very high level. As with any survey, when you do wave one, it's a little bit difficult to say these are great numbers, these are terrible numbers. This is a true representation of the sample that we pulled, I think moving forward, as we go to wave 2 and beyond, you'll start to see trend lines. You'll start to see whether wave 1 is consistent with those, with the actual, whether it is an anomaly to the actual. But again, I think that this gives you a great macro level version of how paratransit is perceived by the customer. Any questions?
Okay, any questions? Ms. Williams, recognize.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I failed to ask the question earlier. Is there a page 18, a page similar to what's on page 18 for the paratransit? For fixed driving versus paratransit?
Yes, ma'am. We don't have it in this presentation, but we do have it. I believe it was majority was work followed by school and shopping. I'll have to get you that specific chart, though.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Work, school, medical.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Summary of customer service?
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Chair and Board of Directors. Ruthie Reyes-Borg, our Chief Operating Officer for HART. Over the past few months, we've heard some concerns from our customers on our fixed route HART Plus Paratransit and Customer Choice Voucher Program, which is our yellow cab and United cab that just came on board. Following the HART Board of Directors direction, staff issued an RFP and I'll just move forward to that. HART issued an RFP for an audit and review of HART Plus Paratransit Program services, and the contract was awarded on June 25th. You heard Mr. Seward mention that TransPro was awarded that program. The audit began on June 10th, and the results are due back within 60 days of that beginning of that service audit. Staff will come back and present results to this board. But in the meantime, I just want to give you a little bit of an overview of HART Plus services. So the transportation offered to customers, again, through HART Plus, includes the same-day option with the Customer Choice Voucher Program, which is Yellow Cab and United, as I mentioned. There's a total of over 3,500 registered clients eligible to use the HART Plus program, paratransit program. 127,500 or so paratransit trips to date in this fiscal year. That is about a 14,000 monthly average and about 287 complaints to date in the same time period. Yellow Cab, which is our same-day option program and vendor from fiscal year to date, is a bit over 56,000, almost 57,000 trips so far, about 6,300 monthly average trips and 96 complaints so far in FY18. And United Cab trips just in the month of June, July, they've just kicked off 799 trips and 22 complaints. So from this, I just wanted to say that while we have been in this process, we have been working in the past in reaching out to customers, reaching out to you separately in addition to those that come here. And staff has been in the background sort of addressing some of these issues and trying to, we want to bring back that to you today. So a little bit about a concern that was brought to our attention was that the HART Plus service area is limited. We have a 3/4 mile service zone that we serve for paratransit customers. It complements the local fixed route. It mirrors the same days and times of the regular local fixed route. And customers can book from 1 to 3 days in advance within that zone from locations to and from that 3/4 mile. Those living outside this service area can still utilize that service. However, they do require coming into the service area, and customer service can assist with establishing a mutual pickup point that is beneficial to them. HART Plus customers have a 30-minute window, and our customers have shared concerns about a no call-out or call-back process while they're waiting for us. 30 minutes is a long time to stand out there in the weather. So recently, as early as July 9th, throughout this past year, and I just want to say throughout the last 8 years, and this is a shameless plug for the IVR, the interactive voice response system that our customers call in through our call center now has a feature that was activated on July 9th that gives a call back within 10 minutes of prior to the estimated time of arrival of that van. So that cut back on a little bit of time and anxiety that it causes our customers while they're out there waiting. We're still looking at addressing any issues that come through that feature because, again, the estimated time is based on the performance of the route, the readiness of the prior customer, and the travel time and the traffic that we incur. But basically, we're looking at that, and it's a very long time coming feature, and we're super excited about it. Late pickups or availability with Yellow Cab or United Cab. Recently we awarded a second contract to United. Yellow Cab has been with us now on its second year. They do now receive in this contract a failure of notice to comply, and they can be assessed liquidated damages. So staff is following up with both vendors, in particular United that has just come on board. We want to ensure that they are going to meet all of the compliance contract issues that they agreed to when they signed on board. And staff is going to be meeting with them directly to ensure that, with if necessary, take further action if they do not comply. And then further, it was previously asked how we tracked comments. HART acquired a software called C-Click-Fix. C-Click-Fix is a website link on our HART web where the customer can post their complaint with us. It is assigned to a department manager from whether it's a vehicle issue, whether it's an operator issue, whether it's paratransit, whether it's tardiness, whatever the concern is, and or if there is a compliment there, they can be assigned to the department manager for follow-up, and an email letter is sent to the customer. We also have started in the last year a touchback program where we call back up to 5% of those customer complaints, customers that file the complaint, so that we can make sure that their concern was addressed. HART Flex brought to our attention that customers would like to see trips outside of the zone. HART Flex, there are 5 county zones. We serve Brandon, South County, Northdale, Town and Country, and South Tampa. Each of those zones is approximately a 3 square mile service area, and it's a door-to-door service, though it does have a fixed line route. Customers can request either a door-to-door within that 3 zone, or they can go deviate from route to a stop, door stop. Reservations can be taken from 2 hours up to 3 days in advance, with walk-up service also available along the route. Also brought to our attention, customers observed operating on their cell phones while operating HART vehicles. Obviously, HART frowns upon that, and management does review onboard bus video, and when we're able to validate that that has happened, appropriate disciplinary action is administered per the contract. The operators do have a contractual language that addresses using of electronic devices while operating a vehicle. While our vans do not have cameras, if there's an opportunity where we can validate through other customers, same statement, we do take the appropriate actions, and then we are tentatively scheduled for installation of cameras in 2019 on board the vans. That's a long time coming, so hopefully that's up there. On board ADA announcements on bus and flex vans. Yes, this is a huge requirement. This is part of the ADA. Operators are required to verbally announce routes, stops, intersections, major points of interest, and anywhere where there is a long distance between stops on the route to orient customers with visual disabilities. The operators who fail to make these announcements receive appropriate discipline, again, in accordance with the ATU contract. A memo was issued to operators in the past. We reissued it in January, reminding them of the requirement to make announcements. It is part of the annual refresher class that was provided on ADA requirements, including announcements and proper wheelchair securements. And there's also a campaign on board our mobile data terminals that the operators log into. So every morning when the operators log into their vehicles, they have a mobile data terminal. They log in with their personal information, their route information, and it should remind them of any detours or any actions that they need to take, and inclusive of that has been these ADA announcement reminders. And then new announcements. So previously our recordings were from 2000 and late. I'll just say that. I think it was from our system's original 2008 install of our ORCAD system. And over the years we have included other announcements as routes have changed, and then we added text to speech. None of those were working to us efficiently. So we recorded new announcements with live talent and launched that on October 1st with service changes. So now you have the adequate announcements along with the locations along the route that announced that. And over 2,000 internal and external announcements, safety message in English and Spanish were all recorded. And along with that, we have been under review of all of our vehicles in fleet to check the speakers and the sound quality and the sound volume. And we did find that there were a number in discrepancies between the vehicles. And although all of our vehicles, the external speakers are for external exposure with weather elements, on this new bus order, we are piloting marine-grade external speakers to see if that helps us over the life of the vehicle. Staff is still continuously adjusting those volumes, and they've gone through the fleet, and as they are recorded, we go back in and readjust those. And with this, I'm going to call up to our podium here Mr. Dan Rodriguez. He is over the bus transit infrastructure program, so he can speak to you a little bit about our shelters and program highlights.
Good morning, Board. Dan Rodriguez, Project Manager with the BTI program. BTI simply, just basic transit infrastructure, a program that just improves bus stops. It's just adding shelters, bus bays, improving access. So I wanted to give you a high level of some new members and for some of the people in the audience. Like Jeff said, the bus stop study was done in 2008. 4,000 bus stops were reviewed, 11 transit centers, 20 parking rides. Out of those, and I won't go through every line here, but out of those 4,000 bus stops, and it was an immense undertaking with staff, we went to every stop. We found that about 1,400 stops were compliant at the time. They had landing pads and areas to board the bus. We found that there were stops that needed to be eliminated due to spacing and due to it's just too expensive to make a stop accessible. So we eliminated 800 bus stops out of those 4,000. We improved since 2010 through the program, and to date we're about $5 million. $5.2 million spent. We improved 1,296 bus stops. With that, we have 500 shelters we've added since then. So we were up to a very good number. We were pretty high compared to other agencies in the country. We also, we did this with very limited staff. We also did it with very little engineering consultants. We tried to do as much as we could in-house to keep the costs down because funding was low. The original study, which was in 2008, which is why we really need to do this again, forecasted it should have been anywhere between $8 to $9 million to do these improvements, and that's in 2008 dollars. So as we move forward, we not only did the bus stops, but we did them in a route-by-route basis because we're trying to keep the costs down, mobilizing construction. So as we did them route by route, we also did some coordinating with the city, DOT, on trying to get some cooperation and some partnerships. We had a city corridor agreement with the city. We did some sidewalks. We did sidewalks on routes because a lot of the time you do an improvement, you don't have a place to go. Putting an improvement up to the corner, how do you get to the trip generator? So there were some corridors that we decided let's just do the sidewalk. Man, we did 9,600 feet of sidewalk in that time. As we did those sidewalks, we also improved every bus stop in that segment. We also did curb cuts, driveways, anything, because it's a partnership. So we partner with the city to do that. The current funding we have right now, it's extremely tight considering the needs that still need to be done. Right now, we get about $120,000 annually federally. We get city impact fees that we get from the county. We get about $90,000 of that annually, and we get $43,000 from the city mobility fees. Now, some of these infrastructures now that need to be done because we've done all the low-hanging fruit become more and more expensive. So places that are in South County, places that are on not so urban corridors are quite expensive due to drainage and other amenities that are missing. So with that, there were some stops that were identified at the last board meeting. One of them of which was at the Valrico Walmart. The Valrico Walmart was part of the 46 extension, right, going out to Dover. As it went out to Dover, it now goes into an area that just isn't as urbanly done. It's a little more transit challenging. There was some, I reached out to FDOT to see if they were doing some road work improvement, to see if they're doing any sidewalk improvement that's really needed towards the eastern end. And they did. They had programmed out, but it was like 5 years. They also had a larger segment. It was more like from Parsons all the way out to Dover. With that large segment and all the needs that are needed in that segment, you're talking sidewalks, you're talking traffic signals, crosswalks, the whole gamut. The cost got high, so they started to segment the project. The project that I was hoping on to limits now exclude the stop that I was hoping for. Because the Walmart is in a tough spot. It's in a mid-block, all right? You have Valrico on one side, I think it's Valrico, on the east, crosswalk, and you have another, Mont Carmel, is it? Mont Carmel, another signalized intersection. So we kind of frown upon having a mid-block crossing on such a busy road. But we could put a landing pad there just to let people on and off, especially employees that need to go there, and shoppers. So being that the original project, if the site fell out of the project limits, we decided now we're going to have to do a requisition to just do this one stop, which is quite costly. Normally what we do is we get a bunch of stops together, we have the contractor hit a bunch of them at one time. So that's what's going to have to happen with this one, because it's going to take, because of delays, it's going to take too long. It's best to hit it now. It's getting good ridership there. You're getting about 8 to 9 people getting on and off there. It needs to be more accessible. There is a sidewalk. It just needs a pad between the sidewalk and the edge of the road. Brandon Mall. There's some issues with the Brandon Mall. Unfortunately, the issues that I have on the stops that I try to improve, they're on private property. I've met with management several times over the year. I asked Ms. Seidel to help me. I'm with her frustration on how to get this done. We are talking about other things with the mall. We're hoping to incorporate these 2 stops at Brandon Town Center Boulevard. It's heavily used by our military. They use it for the express routes going to McDill. It's used by, there's new development happening there. We're going to try to see if we can tap into that new development to try to get those improvements. It's hard for me to do an improvement without having the permission or the easement from the property owner. And I kind of mentioned in the next bullet about the Brandon Mall. So the Brandon Mall, we're in negotiations with them to try to improve. We have several routes there. We're trying to improve the landing area where we can do better transfers. There is a staging area that can be improved, that can be made a long landing pad with maybe some shelters, have people be able to transfer a lot easier. You're still going to have to need an accessible path to the building. So that has to be ironed out. University Area Transit Center. This transit center was built in '99. So back in '99, we had a different fleet. They had hydraulic lifts on the buses, so you can get on and off at grade. There are sidewalks at grade there. Now we have buses that have lifts, and it's a little more challenging to get on and off the bus. So what we're looking to do now is to do an improvement of that whole eastern side of the transit center, bring that sidewalk up to a more manageable grade to help with wheelchair boardings and so on. As well as now we have new routes there, 275, 48, now utilize the center. We need some more access bays. We've identified it in our capital program, so we hope to get that, at least the design started as soon as we can. We have an A&E consultant that's going through negotiations right now. So as soon as they're on board, that's the top task that we're going to hit them with to make the design for the UATC. That's all I have.
Thank you. Any questions?
Any questions?
Thank you, Dan.
Any questions? Short, please.
Very. I'm just going to say, Mr. Chair, why don't you send a letter from this board to the owners at Brandon Mall and see if there's something, maybe he'll respond to a board request, versus not that staff don't have power, but, sometimes if it comes from a higher level, maybe we'll get some attention.
And we can absolutely do that. And we have engaged with, and the property owners changed. So, but we have been engaged, but the easement is one issue. But now we're talking about a complete different flow of transit traffic in and out. They don't want us to use it as a park and ride, which we never did. The riders chose that themselves. So we're looking at a total reconfiguration of how we serve the Brandon Mall. So we can happily draft a letter for the chair to sign.
Mr. Kemp, you recognized.
Thank you. I just wanted to say again, this is a really thorough, good report, and I really appreciate having all this information kind of at granular level in some cases, but that's the level it's worked at. I think it's very important for us to really improve our stops, and though we may have something that rates with other communities, we do have extreme intense rain here and heat, and so I think we may have a little more challenges in terms of stops than some other places do. But the other thing I wondered about, I know we've eliminated a lot of stops and talked about sometimes the stops have been too close together, which also goes to travel time. But do we have a standard for the length of stops now? Between stops?
Yes, we do. We try to keep them between 750, 800 feet, which is, if you think about it, in a city block, that would be 2 blocks. So a standard block is about 400 feet. So we try to keep, if you're at one position, you can walk 2 blocks to get to a bus stop, worst case.
What does that translate into in terms of quarter mile, half mile? How does that, do you know?
800 feet. That would be less than an eighth of a mile.
All right, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Interim Chief Executive Report.
I'll be quick, Mr. Chair. I'd like to introduce new Director of Maintenance, Scott Drainville. If you stand up. He's coming to us from Lubbock, Texas, and previously before that from Rhode Island. And he was very excited to see that State of Good Repair presentation, I'm sure. All going to follow him and working together to get maintenance around. So welcome to HART. Thank you. I wanted a quick update. We had on Tuesday, July 31st, thank Commissioner Kemp and Councilwoman Donahue, who came to the 1 and 2 million milers honorary luncheon. We had multiple operators receive 1 million miles and 2 million miles. It was an unbelievable feat that these members were honored. Saturday, we had a back-to-school bash. We supported it. We didn't have it. We supported it. WWE superstar Titus O'Neil. We supported his organization again by providing free rides in all fixed route buses to Raymond James, or all fixed routes, so folks could come to Raymond James. So students kindergarten through 12th grade and their families to travel to this event free, receive physicals. They received eye exams, immunization, school supplies, and haircuts. Titus sent me a little video early Sunday morning on and wanted to thank us for supporting that event. And then out front, saw some Vote for Art on HART. We were approached by the Tampa Bay Foundation for Architecture and Design to collaborate on a project that encouraged interest and excitement within the community about art. And we're looking at voting and unveiling an art design on some of our buses, and wanted to share that with you. And that concludes my fast report.
Okay. My report is brief. We just voted to have a nationwide search for a CEO, and it's my responsibility to appoint an executive search subcommittee, ad hoc committee. When we did this last time, we have a 13-member board, and of that 13-member board, 11 of you wanted to serve on the search committee. That's not going to work. For some reason, every time I become chair of an agency, I have to do a search for executive director. It happened with MPO, it happened with EPC. So I think the best thing to do is have a 5-person ad hoc committee staffed by Mr. Smith, if you don't mind, sir, and any other HART staff member that you need. The appointees will be myself as chair, representing the county. The vice chair will be Mr. McLean, representing the state. From the city of Tampa will be Ms. Shanahan. From Hillsborough County will be Mr. Knight. From Temple Terrace will be Ms. Donahue. That's the 5 members of the search committee. That's my report. Okay, we're moving now into the public comment. We have quite a few people wanting to speak.
Mr. Chairman, I just have a very brief report as general counsel.
That's
all right. It's all right, General Counsel, you've seen and not heard, I realize that. Just to mention, I do have copies of the letter that Mr. Seward sent, if anybody would like to have those. And secondly, although it's a little bit premature in terms of advocacy and education, if we get on the ballot, if the measure gets on the ballot as of today, you may be inquired or asked what you think. Bear in mind, you do not give up your First Amendment right by virtue of being on this board. So as an individual, you can advocate. Just please make sure you indicate that you're not speaking as a HART spokesperson when you are advocating individually, and I think we'll avoid most of the problems. Thank you.
Okay. All right, public comment. Each person has 3 minutes. The first person, as you can see, we're losing staff, board members here, so be ever mindful of that. Matthew Ribaldo.
Okay. How you doing?
Fine.
All right now. But let's do this. Okay now. I've had a disappointing experience with HART on Saturday because I wanted to go somewhere that I couldn't go to, and why would I think that's fair?
You wanted to go somewhere and you couldn't go?
Yeah.
Why was that, sir?
Well, I wanted to go to Chuck E. Cheese on Dale Mabry. That was, there was no bus service and HART bus wasn't going on Sunday, because we usually take HART bus for most of our places,
I'm quite sure.
Staff will get with you.
Staff will get with you, sir. The staff member sitting behind you, they'll get with you. Work that out, okay?
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.
Have a good day.
You too. Janice Butler.
You need help now?
Thank you. Yes. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak. I'd like to say that I'm excited that the new director of transportation is in the building today. And I'd like to say that the number 37 bus, you'll be on it and you'll hear it saying approaching. Approaching where? It doesn't tell you. It just says approaching. And the other thing is that the announcements are so scratchy and staticky, you can't hear them. And no, the bus driver does not make the announcements in those situations. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Mary, I'm sorry. Yeah, Mary, is it Sculch?
Shock.
Shock?
Good job.
And Janice is absolutely right. The buses are still not making the announcements, even with the new system, because when I walked in this building, I was on hold with HART customer service for about 6 to 7 minutes because I was logging a complaint. I got on the Route 8 at 78th and Palm River Road to 7th Avenue and 15th Street. There was not one announcement made. There are several major intersections in between here and there. So there is still an issue with this. And this is a law, folks. It is a federal law that is being violated over and over again. Now, I want to real quick address the United Cab and Yellow Cab issue. It's not working. Cheryl O'Brien lives in Carrollwood. She couldn't be here today because she has relatives in. On Friday, she made an appointment at 10 till 12. At 2 o'clock in the afternoon, she canceled it. On Thursday evening, I made an appointment at 5:23. 6:47, I canceled it. Miranda Kilby, who was here in her wheelchair but had to go because of her paratransit obligations, her and her boyfriend do not even call for the service anymore because they can't use it, because it's not efficient, it's not effective. Jeanette Torres, they all live out in town and country, same thing. Donna Jackson, she's not here today. She uses all forms of transportation like we do, HART Plus, the bus, and the Flex Route. She said to me on the bus the other day, I asked for her permission to use her name. 3 hours she waited for a cab. It's not efficient, it's not effective, it's causing us stress. It would be better not to have the service than to deal with what we deal with trying to use this service. Adding United did nothing. In fact, it made it worse because their customer service reps are horrible, absolutely horrible. Thank you for your time.
Staff, I'm going to ask you to look into that immediately. And if we can't work anything out with that service and or the customer service of those drivers, we're looking cancel the contract. That's it, bottom line. All right, Marion Wazdala.
I have photos, that's why I'm up here with him.
So, and one of the things that Mary failed to mention, because working on it 3 minutes, we called for a yellow at 3:05 on Friday, canceled it at 3:35, and at 6:15 got a call from a cab driver asking us if we still needed a ride.
Because he was there at Costco.
Okay, ma'am.
Even though we had canceled. So I hear the talk about efficiency, fiscal responsibility. I want to share with you something that happens frequently, and Mary's up here because she's got pictures. On June 30th, we booked travel for Mary and me independently because we each had a companion. You can only schedule one companion. Friends of ours were in from Houston. So we went to board the vehicle when it arrived at about 10:45, and the operator said, "Oh, we're only here for you, Mary, not for Marion." Well, what about Marion? Well, we don't know. Called dispatch. Another van was coming to pick me up. Now, this is I don't know how many seats it has, but it's one of the large paratransit vehicles, and there were 4 of us. We have pictures of 2 vehicles sitting on the road in front of our house.
This is
Okay.
him following us.
And we followed the other vehicle all the way to Himes and Bush. This is fiscal responsibility. This is paratransit efficiency. I don't think so. Again, we followed the vehicle all the way. I took pictures of the vehicle in front of us all the way from our house at 1003 Papaya Drive to 8810 Himes. The same thing happened on our return trip. The same thing happened in April. And if this were unusual, that would be one thing, but it happens too frequently. So we need to look into the efficiency of paratransit. Thank you.
Thank you. Staff.
Address that.
Thank you. I just wanted to follow up. I was made aware of the circumstances where an additional vehicle was sent to the residents during that specific trip on June 30th and in April. Our vehicles are aligned based on how many folks are traveling, and if or not they have a service animal with them, and if or not how many guests they're bringing. We did ask our service planner back in April to, when they schedule a group trip, to put a hold or freeze or something along the lines on their trip to make sure that that group traveled together. That was done for the trip on June 30th. Not sure why our software failed us, and we are looking into that. But obviously, it is something that we continue to work on.
Okay, thank you.
Can I?
No, ma'am, you're done. Your time's up. I'm sorry. Sorry, ma'am.
Well, she refused.
Ma'am, your time is
Okay,
up,
well, I'll
ma'am.
send a letter to the Florida
Thank you very
Association
much.
of Guide Dog Users President.
Okay, very good. Marguerite Ribaldo.
Nope, they don't. He's in my business too.
Up to the one you're right. Microphone is right in.
Good morning.
Hello. Thank you for listening to me. many of the issues that I had were already addressed, but I have an additional issue that I wanted to bring up, and it's about the courtesy of the drivers. Now, I've never had a problem with customer service on the phone. They've always been very courteous and very helpful. And the paratransit drivers, again, always courteous and always helpful. But the regular buses, the drivers just don't seem to care about the people. You know, they're rude and they scream at people. And there was one instance when I was on the bus and the person next to me said, oh, there was a lady that's running to the bus. The bus was 10 minutes early, and the bus driver just turned his head so that he wouldn't have to see her and wouldn't have to pick her up, which I thought that was very, very inappropriate. If he's early, he should be able to pick her up, you know, especially if he sees her. And I know he did because the lady next to me said he turned his head. That needs to be addressed. And I don't know who the driver was, but it needs to be addressed. Situations like that. And also break time. Sometimes when you're at the transit center, they're in such a hurry to go on break that they run off, then they come back late. And then people have appointments and doctor's appointments, jobs that they have to get to, and they're late. And that's wrong too. So I think somebody should monitor that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Miranda Kilby.
Miranda had to leave.
Okay. Hector Perez.
Thank you. Yo vengo aquí para que ellos me ayuden porque esta persona vino aquí a Tampa a hacer de las de ella. Vino de Chicago, no sé, y quitó todas las palabras. Yo vivo aquí en Tampa 60 años.
I'm translating for Mr. Perez, Hector Perez. I'm translating for Mr. Hector Perez. He's been in Tampa for 60 years. He's 75 years old. He has an issue about his bus stop that was removed. He used to take the bus on Columbus, on the corner of Columbus and Dale Mabry. It's no longer there. And so he says that he has to walk a lot. And as you can imagine, because of the sun and his age, he has issues. So he's here to address the situation.
Can we look into that? Tell him that the staff will get with him on that, and you'll have to translate.
El comisionado dice que va a hablar con las personas.
Pero que yo he hablado con todo el mundo y nadie hace caso.
Nosotros vamos a trabajar con las personas para que hablen con usted.
Han hecho muchas cosas aquí en Tampa, muchas cosas que ustedes no lo saben, muchas. Yo trabajé en el ACC, en Deo Maybe, y recogieron dinero para hacer el ACC. Y el señor que había ahí de jefe empezó a regalar terreno aquí en Ybor City.
Yo vamos a tener personas que hablen con usted.
Yeah.
Can you get his name and number and have staff talk to him? But you're going to have to talk to them.
Yes.
Do that, please.
I'll do that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Last speaker is Henry Spells. Good morning, Mr. Spells.
Mr. Miller?
Good morning.
How you doing?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm good. Oh, darn. It's not my TV on my bed. Okay, hello, board. I just got to say, I just want to say this. I have fun experience at Hyperlink, so obviously Mr. Bracken's brain was a good brain for at least a year, a half year, however long it was. But it's on. I mean, I heard y'all just mentioning something about the 2,700 buses. If y'all don't give them away, if you don't give them away, I would love you. Because, Mr. Miller, I want to put something into your head, and Mr. Stewart, if you can listen to me on this one, go deep, deep, deep into thought about having each one of those blue buses be a circulator around Hillsborough County. One for the north, one for the east, one for the west, and one for the south. Bring back the past. Because I've seen some old pictures of, of those trolley buses from before I was starting being on the bus, which was I started in 2013, so I basically saw pictures from 2008, 2009, 10 maybe, I don't know, but if you go deep into thought, bring those buses, keep those buses in their service, but bring routes to run those certain sections of the county. Hopefully the county could fund it. Temple Terrace, Tampa, everybody. I know my man Mike probably would. So, and I hope he solved this problem yet about having his, his rideshare thing. But Mr. Bracken did a good thing. I'm so happy with it. If you also could consider about, maybe later trying to increase the 275 to be a 30-minute run between all 3 to 4 destinations. And if the what's name could get back, if I could talk to him, I want to see if he could try to see if he could redo a couple of more bus stops. I don't know, along Fowler Avenue for 275, because there is that one on Fowler. Maybe there should be 2 on Fowler. I don't know. At least 2 on Fowler. But going back to the
the time is up. Thank you. Thank you very much.
I love to talk to you guys so much.
Thank you very much.
That is. All right, no problem.
Is there any old business? Any new business? We'll adjourn.
Thank you.
Thank you. Long meeting.
Yeah.
Send this to the members, all members.